Can you show up at Zoom?
There is one there for you to sign.
Are you part of the Wayne family that's been in this area forever?
One of the Lane families, there's more than one, there's Lane Insurance. But presently it's.
You can't catch them faces.
Now I can see.
Yes, for animal issues.
There are a lot of animals.
We're taking some dogs trying to see porpoise from animals.
How she do?
We're
As green as they come.
very, very good. Work with us. The other side of the person, so we're going to, got a little bit in. We're continuing to do this. Yeah, it's a religion to say, I don't need to confidence as well as you have.
Yes.
My uncle's the mayor.
You've always been one of my favorite.
Secret.
Yeah. Well, very nice. Got a lot of cousins, very. She was kind of. Looks like. Treat her with a little more respect than they treat the other. So I mean, I think she's so.
How you guys been?
How long has she been in touch? Tired, a few months.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I wrote a recommendation for her to the appointment committee as a mayor, so less than.
Okay.
Yes. All right, well, are you all ready to start?
Yes.
Okay.
Cameron, how you been?
This is rough, but good.
Busy.
Busy is good.
Yep.
Many times.
No. go ahead and take the time off. We'll come back to this next month.
Open you with a 30-minute recess.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Did. That's pretty cool. I'll say.
Sorry. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 7:03 by the clock on the back of the wall on August 4th, 2022. Open the City Commission meeting for the City of Lake Helen. With Heather Rutledge, Roger Eckert, Rick Basso, Jim Connell, and Cameron Lane present on the dais. Scott Simpson, our city attorney, at the table. Lee Evitt, our city administrator, and Dominique Greger, our city everything else. We're awfully glad you're here this evening. Thank you for being here. We have a good bit to do. It's going to be an exciting meeting, an interesting meeting, and I'm looking forward to it. Let's open, if we can, with a prayer. Pastor Medlin is the pastor of First United Methodist. Is that right? That's not the right name. Lake Helen United Methodist. Thank you for being here this evening, Pastor.
I hope you guys feel God's love tonight. I hope you get sprinkled with some of His hope. That's what we need in this day and time. Let's go to Lord. Father, we come to you this day to give you thanks and deep appreciation, Lord, for the beauty of our community. The sad fact that while other areas of our country have communities that are dealing with floods, fires, we are just enjoying the wonderful and beautiful weather and the opportunity to serve you and enjoy our homes. Lord, tonight I ask wisdom for our leadership as they discuss, debate, and decide on issues affecting the quality of our life. May their hearts be filled with love, a mindset of teamwork and good for all as we try to deal with issues in our community. Lord, may they have attitudes of service and humility, knowing that we all are serving you no matter what we're doing in life. Ask your special blessings on them as leaders of our community, and an extra measure of blessings on our mayor, his wife, because of the very special roles that they play in our community. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you again, Pastor. Next meeting, fair warning, that won't be there, so don't get too confused. I'm not sure where it'll be, but don't be confused. Maybe just right up here, but we had it pointed out to us yet again that that's blocking fire exit, and that's no bueno. So let's move on down the line. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, item 12B, request to the Lake Committee. Their request is moved up to 6B as a board,
So you want to move 12D to 16?
12B to 6B as a board. David to the board.
I'm sorry, one more time. 12D is in David?
Correct. Up to 6B as a board.
Any other additions and deletions? Any objections to that move? The agenda is hereby modified. Item 5, approval of minutes. Anybody have any corrections or Additions or deletions to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, they are approved as submitted. Thank you. Item 6, presentation of commission. We don't have to vote on that. I watched the county do something and they didn't vote on it, so. If there were any objections or any controversy, I would think so. And if you would like to vote on it, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Always, if you object to something, speak up. But just like you just did, thank you.
Just a question.
No, it's a good question. It was different. Mr. City Administrator, item 6A.
Correct. Mayor, members of the commission, some time ago, the city was notified and received approximately $1.2 million in federal funds to use eventually at our own discretion as to how we may want to use them. There's a lot of story between those two sentences, but now we have the option of spending $1.2 million. In order to come up with suggestions and reflect the will of the people, a request was put out in our last quarterly water bill, and the results are back. We have them. They are. We have 165 responses. I would point out we have 1,500 water bills, but we have 165 responses, and of those 165, 67% had to do with suggestions on water quality, and the others, the second most popular category was 15% for parks and recreation. We don't really want to discuss the divvying up of funds tonight. I simply want to report on this, and we will talk about it later in a workshop. That would be our recommendation. To set the workshop to actually delve into the details of how you want to spend money. We've had a number of suggestions, and they're interesting enough, they're still coming in. I just had one the other day came in from Connie Hughes in Milwaukee on her summer vacation, and she just relied on and gave us a whole laundry list of thoughts she had. So we still had those thoughts coming in, and certainly taking any time anybody wants to submit some to us. But that's what we want to report on, that we have the results so far, and we will set up a workshop with your agreement to actually discuss how we're going to use those funds.
Thank you very much. Anybody want to discuss that matter any, or just take that and reserve the time for workshop?
11% return rate.
11% is amazing, actually. Most direct mail, if they get 2%, they throw a party. What I heard once in a way. So yeah, 11%. Unfortunately, many of them, well, okay, they're for another day. Okay, obviously we're suggesting. Okay, item 6B/12B.
Let me give a preamble, Mayor, members of the commission. The Lake Committee, a subsidiary of Leaf Living, has asked the Beaver Park for their annual Lake Fest. And of course, we had no difficulty in concurring with that use. They have also asked, however, for a $500 donation to offset the cost to them for putting on the Lake Fest. There's no cost that we have levied against them for things we would normally do in kind of contribution to this, so that this would be for other activities around the Lake Fest. So those requests come to the commission, and I don't see Mark here yet. But do you see Mark back?
No, I just looked. No.
Okay.
Well, is the in-kind contribution we talked about, like law enforcement, public works, and setting up, is that what we're talking
That's
about?
all in kind, no charge.
Is that the donation that they were looking for?
No.
It's in addition to that.
In addition to that, yes, we fund that at no cost, as just part of a community activity. There is a suggestion, the Mark that's here, the mayor and I were talking, we had a thought that we have 5 groups of people, some of them are multiple categories. In other words, all the Lake County churches are in one category, but there are others that I have given to you in a handout that we consider nonprofits that are in the community. And the thought was, and the League of Veterans is one of those groups, the library is another one, that those groups, if they made a request, to be eligible for a donation. We, the mayor and myself, wanted to put some definition into the request, so we have a lot of nonprofits with a lot of good things, but we need to put some definition to which are the ones that we support in the community. The list is one that was up to 17 at one point, narrowed down to 5 groups just recently. And these are the ones that we do not charge for the use of Hopkins Hall. So this is an offshoot of that discussion. And there's nothing magic about those 5 groups or the fact that they can use Hopkins Hall at no charge. But that was just a way to start and define who are those who would be eligible for a contribution. And that's, you have a list there, and that's really the only thing we want to mention right now.
Are you looking for any action on this tonight?
Well, the request is made by the Lake Committee, and they are seeking $500, and it's really up to you. What my concern initially, which is somewhat satisfied now, was we need to put some definition as to who's eligible for that donation. I'm afraid we'd have more applicants than we have dollars. That was my own concern. So if we could somehow define what are the organizations that we support or recognize, whatever. Well, having said that, my friend Roger said, ooh, what about the American Legion? Because they don't use Hopkins Hall. And so if we're going to recognize as a nonprofit, they certainly are. So the theory of using the Hopkins Hall list may not be a good one. At least it was a first attempt to come down and say, this is a group we support. And if everyone's within that group, they can apply to get into the group.
So for the sake of discussion this evening, let's break this into 2 parts, if we may, and discuss the Lake Committee and whether or not we want to do this $500 this time. And then we'll also decide, get some consensus and direct staff as to whether or not we want to formalize a list of such committees and nonprofits that have a favored, or at least a historically elevated position in the community. So for the Lake Committee, is there any discussion for or against? Sure.
From what I understand is that the request for the $500 is for the next budget year. And really doesn't, without him being here to explain the purpose, he's the chairman of the Lake Project Lake Fest this year. Was hoping that it would come up in the next budget year, not this budget year. So without him being here, I don't see any reason why we can't postpone it until he's here. Make it formal.
Any further discussion?
My only thought is, it's an event for the city, and I think I think it would be irresponsible of us not to support it. But he's looking for, if this is 2023, and he wants to be part of the budget, so to make sure that it goes into the budget, I'll laud him for coming in early. And then we kick on to this part 2, setting parameters for any of those, how far out you need them to do their requests. I think that's a really good idea, because when we sit down to do the budget, knowing what those requests for the following year are is a really good idea. Other than that, all we can do is put a pool of money aside to make available to nonprofits that are going to do events that have the best interest of the city at heart. And then you almost have to do those things.
And a pool of money is like waving a white flag in advance.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, it needs some framework. I agree with that. So, exactly what that is, maybe it requires, a workshop to kind of work through that.
Okay.
Right.
So I hear two things, basically, one in favor of postponing it until we have some better answers. One, you didn't exactly say this, but you're kind of indicating you definitely are in support of it. Commissioner Rutledge, Commissioner Donald, any thoughts?
I regret I have no thoughts on this at present. I would liked for Mr. Parrish to have been here to enjoy some of the discussion.
That's a good thought.
Yeah, the way that I understood it was for this year, so I'd like further clarification before we move forward with this.
Well, then if you would tell, Mr. Administrator, if you would tell Mr. Parrish that, we seem amenable, but we would like a few more answers, and, the next meeting, or perhaps even, the next meeting, and if he could come back to us, his odds are good, that we need to answer some questions.
I will just clarify a little bit, because Roger is absolutely correct. We received the application for the dates in April of '23, but this event doesn't take place until that time. We have a lot of budget discussions kind of between here and there, so it's probably appropriate to discuss it at another day. But again, my concern was to get some structure to the request and how we consider it, so we can be intelligent with that. That's it.
Thank you. Item 7A, acceptance of bills paid report. Any questions or concerns from the commission? Hearing none, do I have a motion for acceptance?
So moved, Mayor.
A second.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Connell, a second from Commissioner Basso to accept the bills paid report. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 8A, old business, resolution confirming the partial funding commitment for the purchase of Asher. Mr. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, as you are aware, back in September, believe it or not, almost a year ago, the city made a commitment to fund, assist in the funding of the acquisition by Aleutian Forever of what we refer to as the pasture, the 80-acre parcel of land for that Lemon, Ohio. That process has continued. The activity now, the application has gone past the first hurdle and is now at the level of determining whether that acquisition is in the A category, which would immediately go to acquisition and assessment value, negotiation, or to the B level, which is if we have money left, then we can consider that particular parcel. During the September meeting last year, the city, during the city administrator's discussion, did concur that it would be appropriate for us to continue in contribution 10% of the acquisition value, with Aleutian Forever paying 90% of the value. And at this point, there is no idea of what the value is. I can give you what the owner thinks it's worth, but probably more appropriately, I could tell you the property appraiser values the property at 1.75 million. And so it would be 10% of that, and more realistically, 10% of $200,000 to $250,000, or $2,500,000. Anyway, those are the dollars we're talking about. There's no record of the value of it that I can tell you today, except the commitment would be for 10% of whatever's negotiated between the seller, the buyer being the county, the seller being the Costas family. And it is an offer that we made to assist in that particular acquisition, so the pasture can remain the pasture in perpetuity. There was a suggestion during discussions today that we limit the offer to the Aleutian Forever activities in fiscal year 22-23. We haven't been very appropriate. And to make a blanket one that could somehow be discussed as being open 10 years from now would be very appropriate. Although one commission can't then obligate a second commission. So if that probably never remotely happened, but still wise to limit it to fiscal year 22-23. So that's the question. The meeting in September was written up in the minutes. The number of consent was never put in there, and it was just simply a consensus of the commission. The seller asked as a supporting document that we have a resolution, clearly define what our obligation or our offer is, and so hence the resolution seeking for you tonight.
Do we have any discussion, or do we have a motion concerning resolution 2022-04?
Mayor, I'll make that motion to adopt resolution 2022-04.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Connell, a second from Commissioner Rutledge to pass resolution 2022-04. Do we need to have a reading of that?
I can't, I was just saying, I typed up a new resolution, putting the qualifier that it has to be during the acquisition occurred during this upcoming fiscal year. Is that the one you voted on? Or is that?
It is the one that you don't have that in front of you, so.
Say that again for me.
What's that?
Say that again for me.
I've amended the resolution, it's on my computer, and I emailed it to Lee and Dominic, just a while ago, that qualified our obligation to do these things, the 10% and the maintenance on the property, if they acquire the property during the 2022-23 fiscal year.
It puts a term limit kind of on this resolution, so it doesn't hang out there. And 15 years from now, Lucia forever says, oh, let's buy it now. And we don't, nobody knows what happened.
Yeah,
That's the point.
I'll still make that motion based on that
Okay.
revised.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So for those of you who have checked online and seen this resolution, it is public record, there is that amendment being added to it. And is there any further discussion from the commission?
Question for the city attorney.
Yes.
I'm clearly going to abstain from the vote. Does that mean I also need to abstain from the conversation as well?
That has been,
You're abstaining from the vote?
I'm recusing myself from the vote, yes.
Okay, well, then you need to announce why you're recusing yourself.
My daughter's married to the guy that owns the property.
You're
My daughter is married to Steve Costa.
oh, okay, like you said, you were. Threw me for a loop there.
Not to his knowledge.
Yeah, I would, then you should abstain from, you vote in the conflict form we need to fill out. And you publicly stated why you're abstaining. And what is your question?
Does that mean I abstain from the conversation as well?
that is what I have heard in the ethics training.
It's the safer thing to do. I think they actually treat it differently, whether you're elected or appointed under the ethics rules, but my advice would be just to stay silent.
Okay. Silent, I am.
Any other commission discussion? I know, Mr. Bishop, I'll get to you since. Any commission discussion on this? Mr. Bishop, if you would like to take the podium?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sir. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Wayne Bishop, 394 North Houston. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this issue. I'm here tonight to voice my concerns regarding the pollution clearance purchase of the pasture proposal. This property is currently owned by Commissioner Vasso's son-in-law. The application has been filed in Volusia County, negotiated purchase price. My concern is, Mr. Eric alluded to, what I thought was 70 to 80 acres. I'm assuming here, based on what I read on the application and what Mr. Eric said, the reason being the sensitive environmental plan. The county is asking the citizens of Lake Helena to commit to pay 10% of the purchase price if the county comes to a mutually agreed price with the seller. This land has been used for agriculture for over 8 years, and I know that since I've been living here for the better part of 66 now.
It's currently an income asset to the city. Although not very much tax revenue is generated at this time, there's also no demand for city services or maintenance. If this deal goes through, we can send several $100,000 to the county and have no say-so or control on what the property could be used for and be responsible for maintenance with no future income at all. The argument for buying this property is to control growth within the city. I'm not aware of any plans for developing the property, but Commissioner Basso has stated that his son-in-law will build upwards of 107 homes on the property to maximize his family's return on his asset. I'm not sure that that is possible with the actual buildable land within its boundaries, or our current building codes and restrictions that would probably limit that somewhat. This is just one of the issues with the property purchase to be discussed. There should have been at least a couple of special hearings with proper advertising for the citizens of Lake Ellen to voice their concerns and get answers to their questions from all parties involved when spending taxpayers' money on a project like this. I even would go as far as to say that maybe this should have been a ballot issue, not just a 4-member commission vote that is going to have impact generations on our citizens, or impact generations on our citizens. We need to ask ourselves, why now? Should we involve the city in the person? I know the city has ARPA money that's burning a hole in their pocket. I know that the poll was sent out to ask citizens how they would like to see the money spent. By an overwhelming majority, as you heard this evening, fix our water system. We keep hearing that grant money is on the way to deal with our water system, where, when. Other areas of the city are in dire need of repairs. The building we heard tonight, shuffleboard courts. And have you looked at Mitchell Park? Just to name a few. We also need to consider the other program that we have currently in bed with in the county for the last 20 years. Creative Arts Cafe, and we have a grant money that may have to be paid back $156,626. The article that was in the Beacon last weekend.
Mr. Bishop, your 3 minutes is up, but can you wrap it quickly?
I'm going to get over here real quick.
Okay, thank you.
So anyhow, there was at the meeting, and it's, the article I have here should be embarrassing to all of us. It seems the Echo Board was waiting for the roots of Lake Ellen to show up so they could put us in our place. We'd just like to take a quick excerpt out of this paper. You mentioned, and this is, Mayor, your case to the committee to defend our application to amend this program. You mentioned the name of or you mentioned that none of the staff is here. That's right, COVID ran us into the ground. Nearly all of our staff from Public Works to City Hall has turned over in the last 2 years. It's been rough, Lane said. You want to go to a large city and see beautiful presentation put before you that crosses every T and dots every I? We kind of can't produce that. We're a small city. We are hanging out by the skin of our teeth most of the time, but we are doing the dead level best we can. The committee appears to be mostly unimpressed. My question to you, Mr. Mayor, using your own words, why or how are you considering handing over hundreds of thousands of dollars to the county when we are just barely hanging on by the skin of our teeth? I'm not sure what happens when the sun goes down at the back door, but in my opinion, it certainly appears that a few folks really want to get this done for the benefit of a few property owners in the area and the cost of management. In closing, I'm not saying I'm totally against this proposal, but we need to do our due diligence. We need to hold public hearings to make sure we have full transparency, questions to be answered, and that we know what the impacts will be short-term and long-term. I strongly suggest the commission postpone this vote until all information and details of this purchase are on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Several good points for discussion there, without a doubt. Anybody on the commission wish to weigh in, except for Mr. Bishop?
That property is zoned for 4 homes per acre, correct?
It's only two homes per acre.
2 homes.
80 to 80 acres.
Portions of it though were 4 homes too, right? not all.
I don't, in the past, or now it's 2 homes per acre. And it is 80 acres, but a fair amount of it is a lake or wetlands. So the chances of having a significant number of homes would depend on the creativity, quite frankly, of the developer. But it would not be anything close to 160, probably more likely 100 or less.
I would say that as I was preparing to run for election, I was sitting right about where Cookie is right now, when the last time the commission discussed this directly. And so we have been discussing this openly in public for quite some time. And there has been some dissension and some negative thought. I will say on the campaign trail that numerous people have pushed and prodded and recommended that we do everything we can to not turn Lake Helen into a big city, to work against growth as much as we can. And that, you know, I always say that people have rights to their property, and they do. And I will be the first one to defend those rights. The Costas certainly have rights on that property. I said last time when I was sitting out there, I said the Costas are taking a big risk. Right then, it was a hot market, and they agreed to put that property into this program, the Volusia Forever program application in it, and that was a big risk. And I think to not be aware of that or not acknowledge that would be improper. They have basically taken this property off a very hot market and put it into this program with the hopes that, as many people in Lake Helen hope, that property remains in essentially the same character that it is now. Many people in Lake Helen kind of see that property as capturing kind of the heart and soul of Lake Helen. That's probably an overstatement, but that's where many people's hearts are. And at least that's what's been expressed to me numerous times. So those are the things that have been going through my mind about this. People do want to see Lake Helen, stay Lake Helen, and that property exemplifies it in many ways. It is just private property, it's just cow pasture. But again, Lake Helen feels a kinship to it. So that's.
You know, notwithstanding Mr. Bishop's well thought out and well presented comments, obviously is from a position of strength and heart for the city of town. I had to look at some of my decisions up here. There's a lot of regrets that I have been trying to use most of my life. What do I regret more, making this decision or not making this decision? And in this particular aspect of my particular position and perspective, I would regret not making this decision to take this property off our tax roll. I would regret not making this decision to see 100 homes, 80 homes in there. I would much rather make this decision rather than to drive by there or walk by there or then think about the potentials that could have been had we made this decision tonight. And if the Volusia Forever decides to accept that as well too, you know, we're not even to that stage yet. So I would regret not making the decision to commit to this resolution for 10%. I would regret seeing all those homes over there. I would regret the opportunities that we gave up because we thought about what the value of this property would be to the city in terms of ad valorem and services. I've always felt that Lake Helen is park rich, and again, we're going to become more park rich. I've always felt that that's been our primary assets. We're not going to have any significant level of business here in town. We know that. We are going to have some growth in our homes, and we've already seen that in our residents. We've already seen that. So I recognize there's going to be a significant amount of cost attached to that. I also recognize putting that property into conservatorship or conservation will generate a whole lot of other types of interests we've not heard yet. We've not seen yet. We've not had the organization come and say, hey, we're willing to do this, and we're willing to do that. We've not approached that because we don't have property in which to make those potential assets come to bear. So again, I would regret not voting for this resolution. So that's all I have to say.
On that property. It was not long ago, the requirements were an acre and a quarter. And a past body changed that. I would love to know, I think everybody should know, what was their vision? What was their thought in changing that? I think that's an important piece of information to know when we decide to go down this path. I thought long and hard on this whole conversation, and I could be, I could be wrong if I speak on this subject for, I could be wrong if I speak on this subject against. You can make the argument no matter what I say, talking about it, but to all of you who are going to make the decision, if we have any respect for past bodies that make decisions and put us where we are today, that should fold into the conversation. What was in their mind when they decided to change that zoning from acre and quarter to a half acre zone? I think you should know that answer.
Thank you. Commissioner Eckert?
It's a tough decision for me to make because I'm weighing between the high value as a conservation corridor and the commitment we're going to have our taxpayers involved in. And without getting any benefit back from it, because we're going to be maintaining something that the county's going to have control over. It's just a tough decision. I wish I had more time to figure it out.
Commissioner Rutledge, did you want to throw in on this? And no requirement to the court. I was throwing one last thought on that. You're right, I don't think there will be any direct benefit back to the city. We're not going to be, we will not be getting tax revenues based on the land. But I think there will be indirect benefit to the city. And I know you know this, but there will be a great deal of indirect benefit to the city. We benefit, as Commissioner Connell said, from being a very park-rich, a very green community. And as I said earlier, that's kind of the heart and soul of much of our community. So I think would this triple the land we have in parks? If we did this, it would probably come close. I think the exact number is irrelevant. The point is it would substantially increase our parks and our public land that I think we would benefit from the use of. Maybe not control of, but the use of. I envision it being, I know that it will be connected to the trail system at some point in time. I hope. We have met with Pat Northey, looking at extending the trail down Ohio and going that direction, connecting that trail through here and going on back into the rest of the trail system that the county has put together. Those kind of benefits are tremendous. I know Commissioner Eckert, you've spoken about trails through the city, and it's something that we all, I believe, would like to see more of, and certainly we all enjoy access to those. This would be, I think, a wonderful stop on the trailhead, an option, an opportunity for nature trails and exhibits and whatever on an 80-acre parcel of really fine land. I think there's a lot to be said for it. There are the downsides, and that's what we get to decide tonight. So the motion on the table is to approve resolution 2022-04, which funds the purchase. Funds 10% of the purchase agreed upon by the county and the property owner if that purchase takes place within the 2022 or 2021-22 fiscal year,
2022, 2023.
2022-2023 fiscal year. I do have one more blue card for public discussion, Ms. Bishop.
Chairman Bishop, Newport Avenue. I just threw down some notes while y'all were talking back there, so this may not make perfect sense, but, so I kind of found out through the county that the reason that the last sale purchase of $2 million fell through on that property possibly was because it only, was worth 1.5 million. And as far as the maintenance on that property, that's forever for the rest of our lives. We can't maintain what we have now. I mean, look around. So yeah, we're rich and cash poor. And as far as Mr. Basso's question about the past bodies and what they had in mind, I've stood here several times over the last couple of years and heard y'all say, well, we can't just follow what everybody before us has voted on. And Roger, you're right. I agree with you. We do need more time. I'm not saying that we're against it. We're just saying that we need to do our due diligence and take more time to understand this is a lot of money and a lot of responsibility. What we're doing here by buying up all of this land is we're creating a donut around us, and we are the hole in the middle. Is exactly what's happening. And the hole may fall through, I don't know, but that's all I got.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Yes, if you'll be.
I'd like to ask tonight if the reason why we're discussing this.
I'm sorry, Nancy, if you. for the record.
Nancy Weary, 435 West Delaware. Can't even get my address anymore. Are we talking about this tonight because this goes before the committee tomorrow morning at the county? And the i's were not dotted and the t's were not crossed previously when this was come forth. I do believe we need more time. I'm not opposed to the city of acquiring that property, and I have said that publicly many times, whether it's through forever or as a city acquisition. I am very much opposed to my tax dollars for paying for an overinflated price, not just through the county that's funding the forever program, but through my city taxes also. I think we need to have a real discussion, have a real workshop. We need to talk about all the trails. I know the Parks and Playground Committee is going to reform as the Parks, Playground, and Trails for the city of Lake Helen. So please think about some of what I've said.
I will address one of those things. The reason it's before us tonight is, I believe, a need by the seller to have something more official from the city. When we talked about this before, we, by consensus, the commission, this was before I was on the commission, the last commission, by consensus, agreed to that purchase at a 10.
They did not agree. They did not agree. They.
That was my understanding, and please don't just shout out from
I'm
that.
sorry, but you have to.
I thank you. Thank you. I believe that the seller needs an official resolution rather than consensus or understanding. Whether that was right or wrong, the consensus or understanding was that right or wrong. And now we formalize it or we don't. So that's, this is the proper way for this to be done, is to have it formalized. So here we are.
Mayor, I've got one thing to do. The way
Yes,
I wrote the resolution on the maintenance obligation is subject to mutually agreed upon terms and conditions, which means it has to come, the maintenance part of it has to come back to this body for approval. Because I don't know what maintenance means. We gotta figure out what maintenance means.
Yeah, that could mean anything where if you make it wilderness, you do absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
Or if you make, if the county throws in a $200,000 trailhead facility, and you're expected to paint it every year. It could go either way, so I thank you for having that foresight to put that into this resolution. So we are protected on the maintenance side, and that's very important. So we have this before us. The only we have two options: vote it up or down, or if you want to get more answers, we could table it, but I think that that would, be detrimental to the process where it stands right now in timing with Blue Chip Rec. I'm not hearing a motion to table. Am I? Okay, just want to make sure I'm not stepping through too quickly. So, we will call the question. All in favor of approving resolution 2022-04, let me not say it this way. Let me call it individually rather than all. Commissioner Conlon,
Yes.
Commissioner Eckert,
At this time, no.
Commissioner Rutledge,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries. Okay. Item 9, new business, A, recommendation to purchase new accounting software. Mr. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, we had for the last 5 years, had a computer software program called Tyler Industries. And it has served us, but I can tell you from my experience, not served us well. It's difficult to use, almost impossible to change. It cannot be altered except very laboriously by Tyler, not by us. And the service component is just atrocious. And you've heard the stories in the past, we discussed this, that Dominique has been on the phone for 4 hours waiting to get somebody and only discovered that they have to be transferred to another place. I had a similar experience where I called within an hour and then had to be transferred to another place and got the balance on. And when you are in the middle of an accounting situation, and you need to bring that matter to a head, you get dial tones when you're seeking assistance from somebody who paid $19,000 a year for it. It just is not acceptable. This particular program is one we've actually interviewed and saw a number of these. This particular one is a relatively new company. They have 7 communities that they presently have contracts with. The interesting part about it is our finance director is familiar with the individual who is a CPA, and he is experienced. We checked out the individual cities ourselves, but his people actually served, audited the city of Deer Beach in the Tampa area, and actually St. Petersburg area. And both the auditing crew and the staff are very pleased with this particular software. It is highly amenable to different things and different ways of doing things. Just one example, our water bills are produced by Tyler. The Tyler water bill cannot be changed, and they say it cannot be changed. And so the form that we have printed on those water bills, even though they lack, in some cases, the information citizens would like to have, do things, it simply can't be done. So we want a more flexible software program, and this particular one meets our needs. It also will save us about $12,000 a year too. It is $7,000 versus $19,000. That is a fantastic difference. As a matter of fact, it was so fantastic. It sat on my desk for 4 months because I couldn't believe it, and I had to make sure that we weren't going to get into something that we sincerely regretted just because we were going to save some dollars. But as time wore on, the references came in, the experiences came in. This is a good company that has produced a very good product, and we think it would work much better than the filing system we have now. That's our recommendation to purchase this particular piece of equipment. And we would certainly recommend that as it's actually not equipment, it's software.
there is not a lot of third-party information in either direction about this company. I did a business search, and done search, and they're well regarded financially. There's no question about their strength, based in town. But there's no, other than the cities that Mr. Redditt referred to, there's no professional peer-based reviews. I would defer to Ms. Rutledge, only for any more of that, perhaps, I'm not, what research Google could provide for me and Dunn's, BizNet could provide for me was limited to give me an idea if it's we got to stay away or this is a good deal. So that's my input. A little bit of the research I was able to do was not that fulfilling for me. But it doesn't mean it's negative or positive. I do know, in speaking with Dominique, when I'm visiting City Hall, that Tyler is an extremely frustrating market now. It didn't used to be. And it pains me to listen to some of the time that is spent. We're on hold and we're multitasking because we're on hold for so long, we just can't afford not to work, until they pick up on the call. And then the difficulties in integrating this basic invoicing, linking it to the existing function of the city is kind of surprising, isn't it? So, go ahead, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this matter? I did want to say thank you to the staff, put together these pros and cons. I like that, make it nice and simple. Or clear, might be a better word. Not really simple, but it's clear. Your pros and cons on both companies are helpful to us. Thank you.
What's the term of the engagement on this quote?
Year, I believe.
Year to year.
It is year to year?
You have 60 days prior to the end of the 1 year to be notice of non-renewal.
Thank you.
And there's also termination for cause.
Termination, 30 days, something like that.
I think reasonable time.
This is an instance for me where I'm going to be depending upon the city staff to know this is the right way to go.
That was going to be my portion of discussion, was to say that this has largely come down to the staff that has to work with it, are the ones whose recommendations we should most lean on if we trust them. And I believe they have earned our trust, and certainly made a good case to not pursue this, but to make this change. So we need a motion.
I got one more question.
Of course.
Lee and Dominique, in your discoveries of future or potential other software providers for this, what led you to only suggesting one, not more than one? I mean, there's other enterprise public service software providers that provide financial software, a host of these.
There's a ton of them.
So what led you to this one in particular, though? I know Zach, I know Mr. Calford had recommended them based on prior experiences with these two cities, but what was your process to this point?
We interviewed a number of companies, and again, the first thing we asked them were all the things that frustrated us about Tyler. How amenable it is to change, what are the costs, what are their service response times, things like that. Those are things that really frustrate us on a daily basis. And some of the firms, one of them I'm familiar with, it's called Black Mountain. They're out of Montana, I think. Their response time is good, the cost is about the same, but it's not that flexible. We've interviewed other ones, and again, the same thing. They all had some pluses, but they also had some of the lingering negatives, whether money, response time, or flexibility. This particular firm, because it is a new firm starting out and operates on a totally different platform, is flexible. It's relatively important compared to the old ones, and expensive. $7,000, as I said, it's much less expensive than $19,000. So we naturally gravitated to it, to the point where I was leery, I will tell you, just because it was so expensive. Are we gonna get the kind of horsepower we need, and the kind of flexibility and the kind of response times? So that's why we went to the city to also have it now. It's only a handful. You go to some of these other firms and they say, oh, we have 600 clients, we have 200 clients, whatever it is. And obviously they're well-established companies, but they also have contracts that will show, of course, in terms of details and requirements, what happens if this happens, what that happens. This company is one that, if they did anything, they tried to meet our needs, flexibility, service promises are phenomenal. If they don't work out, we have the 1 year option after the first year, the deal. Although we wouldn't like to do that regularly, but there is a way to get it out.
That's good to know. It includes, I see, the implementation, the transition from one to the other. So there will be a period of time where you're using both during that transition. You have to use, and what's that transition expected? How long is that transition expected to take? Is that part of the year engagement?
We're estimating 6 months.
And that's part of the year engagement, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So during that implementation, since this is a brand new, it's only incorporated since 2020.
Right.
And during that implementation, if there's anything that comes to mind, I would assume, I would think the other four to say this is not working, this is not going to be well for us. So
We've absolutely, we've been so frustrated with time. Trust me, if this starts to frustrate us again, we'll be the first one to come to you and say, we need another one. This one didn't work. But you have it? Okay.
it just concerns me that the company is so new, just
It is.
a deep background.
It is, and I talked to Zach on several occasions, because he knows the CPA, the principal, the president, he knows the software. And for being a good CPA, he wouldn't stand behind, I recommend him, he wouldn't say that. But he did want to say that it's a good company, he knows the principles. Again, they've had good audit experience with cities using the software. The auditors had no difficulty getting information they wanted, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Well, that's strong recommendation. I have a lot of faith in that.
well, again, Zach had heard that, I didn't recommend him.
I have had
Thank
these,
you,
certainly, I've had these discussions with the city administrator, over the last several months, as you said, as we've been looking at this, and many of these same questions we've gone over. They've been looking very thoroughly and getting recommendations, checking into things just like that. Because you're right, it's one of our most critical functions as a county. It's nothing to be toyed with, but again, we have to have a functional software program. We just have to. You look like you're fixing to say, Commissioner Rod.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if some of the reason that this is cost effective is if there's any additional hidden costs, such as the software support.
The only hidden cost is there is a transition cost, it's also $7,000. Transition all our data from Tyler to them, and that is with anybody, we're charging the transition costs. So that, I didn't find that unusual at all, but I thought it was quite reasonable compared to others. That's the only hidden one, with no other
So there's no
options
support.
we selected or something like that.
Okay.
No, none of those.
You don't get billed by the hour if you shoot or something like that.
I have two observations. One, this is the fourth time in 15 years that I've been brought the latest and greatest software program that's going to solve all our problems. And another observation is that ever since the Commodore 64, this industry has been moving and changing flawlessly. And so it doesn't surprise me. I have to lean on those of you who work with this stuff to help me through the decision making, because when somebody brings me the latest and greatest, I like to think it lasts almost 3 or 4 years. You know, but I don't know if that's a reality. I just don't, in this particular industry. So that's just my observation.
That's a very good point. It is a volatile, changing, it's a rapidly evolving industry.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes, sir.
Commodore 64.
Okay. So I pulled it out of the air, all right. Just-
Yes.
I thought, sorry, I'm not trying to, I just didn't know what that meant.
Sure you did, sure you did.
You're almost as old as I am, don't you say?
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the purchase of new software from Clarion.
First, I have one more question.
Of course.
Quickly, I was kind of surprised to see the HR function in there. Is that something that we'll be taking advantage of?
Sorry, you're surprised at the price?
The HR function, I was kind of surprised to see that in there. Is that something we'll be utilizing?
We don't have, not right away. We do need an HR function, but we need a lot of things, but, you know, that's one of them. One of the things we want to do, as you know, I hope you know, is we want to at some point transition from quarterly billing of the water system to monthly. And it'd be much more easily done with this software than the Tyler. The Tyler literally has to start all over with a brand new bill, brand new operation thing. Tyler, again, one of the frustrations we experienced with the bills and how that particular agreement with the bills works and the constant, you know, back and forth between the owners of the bills and the city about the accuracy of the billings. So, but Tyler just isn't flexible. And, you know, we spent some, not serious money, but we spent some money with Zach as an extra assignment to his job, trying to straighten out the bill of the city building. And I don't think he ever was able to do it, quite frankly. It was just a mystery. So that's one of the problems with the Tyler system, it's just as inflexible. You cannot throw a new thing at it. But I'm getting way off the topic. We will have an HR function at some point, I'm sure. And it'll just be there and just simple start using.
Chair is waiting for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the purchase of new software from Clarion.
Clarion or how do they say it? Clarion. Second.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Rutledge and a second from Commissioner Vice Mayor Connell to approve the purchase of software from Clarion. Any further discussion? I don't have any requests to speak, I do not. Hearing no further discussion from the commission, I will call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 9B, recommendation concerning Team Volusia Economic Development Corporation. Mr. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, every year the Team Volusia approaches this city and the other 16 cities in the county, so that we may all be partners with the county on economic development in the region. The amount that we are asked to contribute every year is relatively small, and it's based on population. This coming year will be $1,400. The only concern that I would suggest to you, and maybe we're not even considered a valid concern, is that this particular agency seeks to bring in business, industry, a variety of types. They're not limited. The government base increases is their forte. When we look at our community, we really don't have a roof or anything like that. With a septic tank system, we really can't build high-rise structures or large, densely populated office buildings. So there's some question is, you know, how valuable is this organization to the city of Lake County? Of the 16 cities, everybody's a member, including Lake County, has historically been. Fox Inlet is not a member, and I've been trying to get hold of them and have never been able to make a call. I suspect they are exactly the same size we are, almost identical, 3,000 population. They have no room for anything except residential, and probably wouldn't want anything if they had the room for residential. So I suspect that may be their reason. There's just no need for that type of expenditure on their part. There is a strong argument, I think, that can be made that no matter where the new development is located, in DeLand, in Orange City, wherever, we may participate in that development through residential dwellings or other things that we would benefit from. So it's not a total lost cause, but it is something that rather than staff making a decision on this thing, I would prefer that you make a decision whether to continue the participation on an annual basis. Again, it's a modest sum, it's only $1,400, but it's one that I would pick upstairs to do.
How long has this organization been doing this?
I don't know
I'd
exactly.
say about 50 years.
Okay, that's a long time.
Maybe not that long, maybe about 40. I used to be in Orlando EDC, when the Volusia EDC was invited into Orlando, and Volusia wanted to do it by itself. That had to be late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
Well, do I have a motion or to,
Question. What did they do for us? What did they do for us last year?
What was the left?
What did they do for the city of Lake County last year?
What did they do for us? Nothing.
Year before?
Nothing.
So the only real reason we're doing this is a relatively inexpensive amount of money to keep our hat in the game. In case something comes along and it shows good faith and that we're team players.
That last one is probably the one that I would suggest. We need to be good neighbors to our neighbors in other cities. And I would hate to stick out of the sore thumb, but we're not cooperating.
said this, but for me, one of the more compelling arguments is that, like you say, we are a team player, and every economic development that happens in this county benefits this city. And if a nice business is brought into Daytona because of their work, we all benefit as well. Just because.
It's a team player payment,
If it was 14,000, I would say no.
indeed.
But for this amount of money, I don't think it's worth making waves.
Is that a motion?
A motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Basso, a second from Commissioner Eckert to approve the payment to and agreement with Team Volusia, Greater Daytona Region. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 9C, Mr. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, for as long as I've been here now, 18 months, we've been working on a drainage situation on High Street. And it was a long-standing problem that started basically in the year 2004. It was the first attempt of the city to resolve the issue. And the basic issue is water from Washington in the woods comes out on the High Street, and the angle of the, not the angle, the humps in the road, and
Elevation.
the elevation changes in the road water, instead of going down High to Ohio, go right down into the Schaefer's property, and is causing them some damage. They said in 2004, the city attempted to resolve the problem with 2 French drains, that was totally inadequate. And the Schaefer's have been living with the situation ever since. As the woods has developed, the forested floor, which absorbed much of the runoff, disappeared and became lawn and streets, and so the runoff continued to increase. We have developed, the staff have developed plans for the correction of the problem, which will cause, assisted by regrading the road and tilting the road toward the swale built on the west side. So the water does come on Washington, it won't immediately cross the street and go into the Schaefer's and close to Paul's property. But Schaefer family has been the most active family in this issue. So I use their name, the all the homes around that east side, shifting water to the west side, and the swale will be created, and then we'll go down where it should go onto Ohio. We did the engineering for the job, and the bid was supposed to be 42,000, came in at 77,000. And the second bid, we had 2, was 92,000. So anyway, the city engineer did negotiate, got them to lower the price, a small amount from 77 down to 74. But it's still a tremendous amount to have to swallow, but quite frankly, it's been needed to be done for almost 20 years now. And we are recommending that this particular bid be accepted, so that we can solve this problem once and for all.
I have a motion to accept this bid, and we'll discuss it, of course, but I'd like to get back to starting with a motion and then discussing it, rather than just discussing for a long time and then coming up with a motion and then discussing again.
I've got a question for the city attorney.
Mr. Bassett?
These are both clients of my son's construction company. Both JBL and NFB are clients of ours, and I do not know whether or not there's any work on here that would be subcontracted to them. Is this something I can weigh in on?
Are you going to not vote on it because of that?
I'm asking.
So now you're at, so we don't know, you don't know if your son is doing any work on this at all?
Correct. At this juncture, I do not. I just know that they're clients.
I guess you don't know that there's a voting conflict, you're saying basically there could be, but you just don't know if there is.
Correct.
Probably the safer thing to do is not vote, because your son's business could be doing business with one of these, and then that's true. So that's probably the safer course of action.
Let's fill out another one of those.
I'll ask a question again. Do we have, thank you, Mr. Bass, I understand that's support. Do we have a motion to accept the bid from JBI Contractors? Okay, we'll go back to the old way. You want to talk about this for a little while? Any discussion on this?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Based on your description, are we moving the problem area from one location to another? And then talked about moving the stormwater from the current location, directing it down to High and Ohio. High and Ohio also have a flood problem. So are they going to correct both problems, or are they going to move the problem and make another problem worse?
We are directing the water off of the east side of High onto the west side of High. But in both cases, where the water was in west or east, it was still go down Ohio now, and it would go down Ohio then. So if there's a problem with Ohio, that would have to be solved separately through the installation of a stormwater system on Ohio, which is, many years off.
I still don't understand why we can't negotiate with the Woods Development, since the water's coming from their area into, instead of having a drains as a French drain, run the pipe over to the retention pond so the water goes back to the Woods area. It would seem like a lot easier than moving the water down to Ohio, just to get it from one area to another.
That was a discussion that I had with the engineers, and I will pass on, their response, and, I'll let, the city attorney then interject if it's necessary, but the engineering for the woods was done, I want to say 2002, or somewhere thereabouts, and completed in 2004. The engineering, not the development, but the engineering. And it was approved by the city, and it was constructed as designed. I think in hindsight, it would be fair to say that drainage plan was in error, because it did not capture all of the water that came off Washington and direct it into the retention areas as it should. And we've lived with it since that time. Because I did discuss the idea of, is this really a problem for the woods and not for us? And, again, the reason I asked the city attorney just now to pay attention was that if there's some way, but practically speaking, we made the approvals, it was constructed according to the plans, and we approved the construction. It would be difficult, I would think, to go back and say, well, 20 years later, you should have done it differently. And because of that, we really have, and I think you're right, it should have done it differently, because it is.
It isn't getting them to pay for it, but to work with them, just to have their permission to put the drain pipe into their retention pond.
I don't think, let me ask a slightly different question, but same basic question. If their engineering and their effort at solving this problem, didn't work, even though we approved it, and it was their best guess, it still hasn't worked, aren't they still, liable, may not be quite the right word, but aren't they still responsible to be a part of the solution? I think that's exactly what they're asking. It seems to me, and that this may be something that you need to even look at and get back to us. Mr. Basso, you do have some expertise in this area. Go, man.
I think the biggest problem would be there's no easement that would allow you to run the pipe from there over to it. In other words, there are lots. When they do the plan to begin with, they will create easements that allow you to run the pipe through the easement into it. So there would either have to, now the land is owned by property owners. So the land would have to be bought from probably two property owners, so you could run it down the property line. And I would think at the end of the day, it probably would cost more money to do it than it would run. By the time you procure these, you ran it through there, and you had to replace homeowners.
Chris and a house when we built that area. Getting them permission just to use that area.
Well, that certainly seems reasonable. I think we could ask them.
Well, and yeah, of course we could ask them, but the issue that I understand is the water comes down to Washington and gets onto the high, which is outside of the development. And at that point, it needs to be captured in some way to get back into the retention pond area. And what this project does is basically regrades high, sloping it toward the west, protecting the homes and the shakers and others on the east side, so the water won't go into their yard. It naturally will stay to the west, and we're putting a swale in. And so at that point, we probably, it would be 90% of what they're suggesting to do right there. we at least have to capture the water, get it to the soil, and then, rather than to Ohio, that may be the best option after that is to put it into a piping situation off into, the retention area. But again, I'm not an engineer.
That was gonna be my next thing to weigh in on, is that this is our engineer telling us the best solution. Certainly, we're here to ask questions, but I can't ask a very,
It may be the least expensive solution. I mean, the swale will actually, believe it or not, as the water goes through it, the water will have the opportunity to go through some recycle into the thing. But I'm assuming that you're just going to allow the water just to continue to move along the high until it gets to Ohio, and then it's going to go off Ohio into the pond that's on the south side of Ohio.
Right.
Okay. Is there any sort of treatment going to be on the opposite side of Ohio?
Is there, no, there's no treatment plant on the other side.
Because you're going to have an erosion issue.
You have it down, because again, it's the water goes down high on the west side, excuse me, on the east side, we're trying to get it on the west side, but both ends up in Ohio.
Right.
So if all the water is getting to Ohio, when it over Ohio,
If it goes across Ohio, you don't have to go under the road with the catch basin and pipe. It could be captured on that side and put into a swale with energy dissipator to control the erosion. Otherwise, if you don't control the erosion, then you're going to have an issue on time.
right, right.
And I would have thought that if that's what you're trying to do with water, then that would be a consideration. Follow me?
I should have had it this year. You guys have questions, I said, the answers.
Yeah.
I don't have that expertise. But I know, I've asked some of the same questions, and I've gotten reassurance that this is by far the least expensive way to do it. If you would like to postpone it, the city would have no objection, or Schaefer would like to see it go forward, and we've been living with it now for almost 1 year.
That's my only question, is if the water's not going to be collected, okay, and it's just going to sheet across the road and down the swale, I find it hard to believe that all that water is just going to dissipate into the ground. It's going to go across Ohio.
Oh, it will.
And then, so before I would be willing to vote on this, I would want to know from the engineer, is there something going to be done on Ohio to handle erosion control?
Okay, we can do that. We can do that.
I'm not trying to make this more expensive.
No,
What I'm trying to do is make sure that we solve the problem completely before we venture into the game.
you don't kick a can full of water down the road.
Yes.
Since the south side of Ohio we're talking about already has a small drain port coming from the road down into that mill.
It already has a collection system.
Not a question, just a pad to drip the water down.
Is there a curb on both sides of that?
No.
Well, we could go down this path, and the worst scenario would be in some sort of flume or with energy
It's not all the
distribution.
water that collects on the north side of the highway. And doesn't cross the street till it gets up high enough to go
Right.
over the swale.
But it's kind of what you want to do, is you want it to go into the swales, and you want it to go through the swales. Because the swales also they're a filter source. Okay? Whereas if you just dump it in the pipe, main line,
It shows the aquifer.
yeah, exactly.
So it's
So
the superficial aquifer that's an important one.
that's probably the worst case scenario, is you may have to do something on the south side of Ohio to make sure you capture the water and it goes down a flume.
Well, the swale on the west side, which the water will be now directed toward, is an open rounded swale. It's not concrete, so there will be some absorption going on, which didn't happen before because it was either in the road or it was in the shade of the front yard. of course, that did percolate down at that point. So there will be some lessening in the Ohio, but not very much, I wouldn't think.
Mr. Cook, did you want to address? Thank you. I'm stunned.
Hey, General Cook, 792 Oak Tree Lane. I'll just put this way, I was short here when the rain was coming down that road. Myself and Ray Shaker took pictures and I shot all the grades coming down where the water was coming and everything. Now we can go back to when Don Fidel was working on his project. Okay, now this is before that the development was all built up in that area, but the water was running down the hill. So at that point, Don Fidel got a swale down where they're talking about cutting it down, okay? And running it down here to handle some of that water. Nothing like this now. When we shot the grades, we shot the grades, the deal was when that development was built, it was to hold its own water. No other water was supposed to come over and go over the way it is. The only thing is that last road in there, they left the hump in the road. There's a little hump, I shot the grades, I got all the grades and everything. But what's happening is where that hump is, that water's supposed to run down for their catch basins and go into the retention pond. It's not doing it. From the hump, it runs right out to High Street and comes down. And there's such a volume of water when you get the whole road going, it comes down so fast that it goes right across the street, past the corner, it goes right down on that side and goes over into the grass. Now, there was a pipe put in there, French drain basically. We checked that, that's clogged, but there's a French drain there and stuff. Now, the thing is, with the solution to this, in Don Fidel's letter to correct this situation, in there it states that they can put a pipe from that swale that we're talking about doing, put a pipe into the retention area. Here's one reason. Where that water is all going is going to a person, two people that own that piece of property. It's a private piece of property. All that water runs down. Now we're going to put more water on it and it's going right to those people's private property. That's another big thing. So I think one of the big solutions in this case, if this project will work, like Lee says, the engineer says it'll work, is at the retention area there, that's where we could do a catch basin right there. So the water coming down doesn't go to Ohio, hits the retention, into the retention pond, run a pipe right in the retention pond, and it's all solid.
It may cost, it might cost more money, but so what?
Not a hell of a lot,
If it's the right fix, then
But the thing, my question, Rick, is, which I asked Lee, because we've discussed it before, is they're talking about cutting the hump off the road, what we call it. That's a questionable thing. If you do that, you're gonna have to cut into the blacktop. They're talking about doing what, Lee, an inch and a half cut?
There's two humps, the way I understand it, there's one on High Street, when the water comes out of Washington, hits a high spot, and that's what really shifts it over to the Shakers. But apparently you're saying there's a hump on Washington as well?
Yes,
Okay.
down in there, when they put that development in, all it was is somebody screwed up and put that hump in there, so the water doesn't retain into their property. That's where it should go.
screwed
That would
up,
have been an easy way to cut that hump off and there and let it go.
screwed up construction or screwed up design?
Huh?
Is it screwed up, was it built?
Well, I didn't check the original plan.
You don't know, okay.
But I know one thing, when we can prove that and everything else, every bit of water, Rick, was to stay in their development. This one last road, you can see it, they got a hump in there, but shouldn't be there. It should be running back to their property, and it's not. That's the big cost.
Do you know who did the design work for that, for the woods?
For the development,
Yeah,
well, we can get it easy enough.
because it's either, if what you're saying is true, it's either a design problem or it's a construction problem.
Construction problem, definitely.
If,
I don't think the engineers that did that whole development
yeah,
would have that hump in
okay.
it. It's just, you're right, it's a construction problem, somebody didn't get the grade.
So back to the point somebody was making several months ago about, we have not taken over,
No,
the city has not?
they're public right of way, but we've not taken over maintenance.
Okay.
So if this is a maintenance problem,
Well, if,
They're still responsible for their stormwater.
You're right.
yeah, very much, stormwater is never an issue. They are totally responsible for their stormwater, and there's no provision for the city taking any of that over, including sidewalks. That's strictly theirs.
Really would be nice to have the engineer here to defend why we went with this solution. I find it very difficult. Do we need to make this decision tonight?
No, I don't think it'd be appropriate to shoot another Sabres if they're back there, are probably shooting arrows at me right now. But, this, for 77 pounds, you can do it right.
Yes. Got a motion to table?
motion table.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to table, till the next meeting, where,
We may have the need for, and later we'll get into it, for a special meeting to deal with assessments. So it would be probably about 2 weeks we need to do that, and we could do both at the same time, and do it 2 weeks.
Rick, I tell you what, I will look into the home and see where the last one was supposed to be. Okay, there we go, because I shot grades and it's, if we could get rid of the hump, I think you could save 80% of this work.
Who did the engineering for this job, Derek?
Derek, yes.
No, this is way before.
No, I'm talking about
For this.
Oh, this, I'm sorry, Derek.
this,
Actually, he did it as ECT, not as on his previous employer.
You have his number, would you get on and have him call me, just so I can understand?
Oh, sure.
Where he's head's at?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
and just point of discussion, I think it's, I'll have you note, Commission, I'll have you note once again that the engineer's estimate is that this was gonna be a $42,000 job. And the lowest bid came back at 77, the next lowest was 94. We're in weird economic times, and I just wanted to point, this is a really good example of that, and this is, we're gonna be addressing that in further discussion down the line on some other topics.
I've got his number, I'll call him. Thank you.
So that has been tabled at this time, public forum, and I do have,
Mayor, I'm sorry, I should have told you in the beginning. We, if you call, HPD met, and they had 5 homes on there that were not forwarded to the commission because they're still under review. But there were 2 fences that were approved and should have been on the agenda, so we would like to, you all have copies of them on the 2 non-controversial in the opinion of the historic board. If you could approve those 2 COAs, those citizens would appreciate it for all success. And I should have, at the beginning of the meeting, pointed to that. I didn't.
so we have 2 certificate of appropriateness for 275 West Delaware and 326 West Delaware, both new fences.
These are positive.
Yes. So we are entering a quasi judicial hearing. Now, is there any statement of, or ex parte communication from any commission? No. None by me. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board about these 2 fence applications? People need an opportunity. Yeah. Are these fences online, or are these applications online now available? And, but they have been recommended for approval by the Historic Preservation Board. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve both these, certificate of work, one for 326 West Delaware, 275 West Delaware.
Second. I have a motion from Commissioner Basso, a second from Commissioner Ector to approve the two certificate of appropriateness for 275 West Delaware and 326 West Delaware. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Morales. There you are. Thank you. Now we move to public, that closes the quasi judicial hearing. Now we move to public forum. I have, I think, two cards. The first one being from Sergeant Bishop.
Shirley Bishop before that name. Well, I wasn't going to speak on public forum until this last little vote just came out. So I like the way Lee said, for $77,000, we can table this issue that these residents have been doing for over 20 years. We didn't bother to throw out there that they've also requested or billed or whatever, $50,000 for damages for the mold that's growing under their house from all this water that is washing their property out every time it rains. It's growing everything in there, all their papers, everything, all underneath their house. And they submitted a bill or whatever, a request for $50,000 to have that fixed. But it's only been 20 years, so let's go ahead and table a $77,000 note. But we don't want to wait and get any extra information on a $450,000 note. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Mr. Cook, Jr.
Hello, everybody. Alan Cook Jr., 849 Pleasant Street. I know you guys love me and my great ideas. I'm here tonight to seek your opinion, approval. I chatted with Lee about it the other day on the phone, quickly, briefly of my intentions, but it involves the shuffleboard court. And my intentions and my reason for this is I promised a young gentleman an Eagle Scout project, and we were all systems go for doing the gym garden patio area next to the CAC. We haven't given up on that, but with the recent things, we kind of holding the right with it. So the Eagle Scout project has a deadline of December, and I don't think this whole echo thing will be resolved enough where we'll be all systems go to complete his Eagle Scout project. So I discussed it with him. We looked around town. I did chat with Lee about other options, and I'm here to basically give you a proposal of your thoughts and a kind of a green light or a no light. And I'm also open to other suggestions, but to take the shuffleboard court area, not change anything structurally, remove the shuffleboard courts themselves, maybe leave one or two, depending on what y'all's opinion that is for historical reasons. But take that out and create a community garden, kind of somewhat shovel ready for that. It's in the center of town, it's highly visible. Other people want to get involved, I'm sure, to maintain it, to kind of be like almost like a crop share co-op kind of thing. But it has power, has lights, has water for irrigation, has the fence to protect it from animals and things. Obviously, the building would be used, but not publicly, but it would be good for storage, for tools, things. again, I'm open to suggestions. Obviously, there's two situations here. Obviously, I know with the Eagle Scout, I'll be glad to bring him here next meeting, but he has a Eagle Scout call to, he has to get their approval of his vision. And he already went through all that for the Joe Garden and they approved it, but, again, I kind of feel bad that that's gonna be on hold for a little bit. But he'll have to go back to them and say, hey, I want to do this now, and that takes 2-3 weeks. So I was hoping for a little feedback from you guys if you like this idea also. Thoughts, questions?
Commissioner? I think that whole building, that whole area has to be viewed and big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really interested in doing it piecemeal. So until we have the funding and the opportunity to go and look at the whole building,
Mhm.
I think the future is what we would like to see done. I don't want to do anything there.
Okay.
That's just me.
Any other thoughts? Commissioner Comer?
Being a scouter for a long time, sitting on many Eagle Project Review Boards, Eagle Board Reviews, Eagle Award Boards. This is what an Eagle Scout needs to face. And Mr. Cook Jr., I appreciate your advocating for this young man. It speaks highly of you. Of course, you always have my highest respect.
Mhm.
But the young man should have been up in here today.
Well, I did what
Let
I
me
said
finish, please.
the other thing, and that was my fault.
Let me finish. But I echo Mr. Basso, Commissioner Basso says as well too. I think we have to have a holistic approach to that Summerboard Court area. And is this a true 590 scout or a scout out of Deltona?
I think he's not a Lake Hell Scout, but he's helped with many Lake Hell projects. There's a gentleman that works for me, it's his son, his name is Braden. He's helped other Eagle Scouts fix the equestrian center fence, he helped us do the Legion here recently. He's very involved, but I think his official thing is the Barry Orange City.
So your coworker, is he involved in the troop?
He is.
It says he's one of the
He's a leader.
co-leaders in the troop. Okay, that was my second question. So, that's all I had.
Again, I would gladly bring him here, but I kind of feel obligated that I promised him this, and that was gonna happen, and everything's good, and then things happen that's out of our control. Now I feel kind of obligated to fix this for him. And obviously, I'm open to suggestions of other things we can do, but I just thought that was an easy thing, kind of open. We're not gonna change anything drastically that can't be put back, but I just thought it was a great thing right in the center of town, to kind of put some life in a building that isn't doing anything with it.
Other questions?
Recently had communication, I forget her name, I apologize for that, with the lady from Elizabeth. Marcia from Elizabeth.
Okay.
And she was requesting places for the same type of project.
Oh, yeah?
And I talked with, Leah about it, and it kind of ties in with Lake Helen's past.
Yep.
And with the museum building in the back.
Good.
To use that back area behind City Hall as a community garden.
Just actually a very large area.
I like that. I mean,
And it would tie in because of the community garden is kind of what Lake Helen had way back in its days. And that would tie in with the historical building and everything else.
I know you can put it somewhere, you just need to put it in the right location, and that was my
There's a
opinion.
lot of people in the community that want to do that, so.
Oh, yeah, I think,
Labor force to help do it too.
I think, building they will come, but it'll be a great hit. There's obviously two things here to do. One, construct it and build it, and then somebody to maintain it and see it through and manage it and control it, so it's done. And I don't have no problem taking care of the first one.
Mr. Bassett?
Several years ago, I rented a piece of property to a group of people. It was a 2-acre parcel for $1 a year for a community garden. Do you know what it is?
I would assume it should.
It didn't happen. It
There
wasn't.
was that lady that had the old meat market, then there was the Costa property Didn't the city have some kind of deal with them or something, but that never happened either.
They were trying to do that, but it was falling through, so I offered 2 acres.
Yeah.
One corner of Lake Ellis and Kickwater. And they did some stuff for about 6 months, and they never happened.
And that's cool. I mean, a community garden, obviously this Eagle Scout thing, I'm not really up on all that, but obviously that would have city property or county property.
What I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the shuffleboard corridor is gonna work. That would be the way I would weigh in as well.
Okay.
We've had other discussion at the commission and presentations to the commission for that area. I personally think we should, we're looking towards that being an area where we improve with some of the ARPA funds is one thing that I'm hoping for.
Good.
So to piecemeal it and to create something like this, I think right now would be inappropriate for there. I would say maybe you could go back to doing that there at the Cultural Arts Center. That to me would still show energy and forward momentum there at the Cultural Arts Center, which I think might be beneficial for everybody. I don't think, certainly that building is not going anywhere no matter what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I just,
I understand you're putting the brakes on a little, and I get that. You and I, anybody can discuss it, but, I would suggest maybe going back to that one, because I would love to see some more energy and forward momentum go into that property.
I hadn't looked that much, but, Commissioner Eckert said behind the building.
There is a bunch of empty grass out there.
I mean, you guys kind of would entertain that?
I certainly would.
I would.
Well, I've actually spoken with city administrator about that. There's an area that's roped off out here, and I believe is the drain field area, septic drain field area. And I was thinking, we've got a dog park here. I thought we ought to have a horse park out here. I think that would be great. But certainly there's an area out here, a significant area, where we could have something nice that would be, I think.
I just saw a lot of great options there, like I listed the fence, the power, the water, the building, the visibility, everybody saw it.
There are advantages to being right by a building, and you have much of that here as well. Power and water is equipment. May not be quite as easy, but pretty close.
And then I know obviously these great ideas of mine hit me to at weird times, but if you guys have another option, I would be willing to entertain it to pass along to him. I was like, hey, you really need this, and please reach out to me. But I kind of need to get things going because December is coming soon.
It's coming.
So
How old is the young man?
he's going to be 17.
And he turns 18 soon?
Yes, I think that is the deadline, right?
And this is the pressure thing.
Yes.
That's occurring, this following.
And we got time, we just need a direction to say, hey, we're going to do this, because then he has to take it to the Eagle Board, and he has to get approval from them, and obviously we gotta get our materials and stuff together, and, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public forum discussion? Move on to item 11, Commissioner reports by zone. Commissioner Rutledge.
I don't have anything this time.
Commissioner Eckert.
For all those people that like to give, tomorrow, we're having a blood drive at the library. So if you have some spare blood that you would like to give to somebody else who needs it, they would very much appreciate it. If you can't make it to the library the following Saturday on the 13th, one bloodmobile will be at the American Legion Hall. So it gives you 2 weekends to donate blood to those that need it.
Thank you. Mr. Bassett.
I was referring.
Vice Mayor Collins.
Two things, quick things. What's going on with Faith Grove? There's an absolute pause in the construction over there, and thank gosh, the silt fences are installed from the way.
Faith Grove has completed the ground preparation work with the exception, and I haven't checked in the last couple of days, but they were missing sod in the retention area. But other than that, the land development portion of it has been completed. I alluded earlier to the Historic Preservation Board, had 5 homes on their agenda, and they postponed the decision on all 5 of those. And all 5 would go into Big Grove, so the actual design of the homes to go there is still before the Architectural Review Board and the Historic Preservation Board. But they have not yet reached a decision. After the last meeting, they instructed Bobby to meet with them and work out issues and difficulties they saw in the overall plan. And that's going to be back at the next meeting. Other than that, I think the ground is completed, but you're right, you don't see much activity.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for the update. Tell us about Coastal Gas. Coastal Gas, corner of New York and Summit.
Oh, that one. That particular property was up for sale, as you know, it is zoned commercial. And it is purchased by a family that I understand owns the convenience store on Ohio and the name of it. There is some issue on the, it is within the gateway, so they have not applied for any architecture review. And just as of today, we're investigating, they probably need to go to architecture review.
Yeah, are they aware that they're in the gateway and this sale and purchase is going to trigger that?
I don't know.
We've already got a coastal sign, monument sign in place at the corner there.
Yeah,
I think that's a little premature.
yes. No, they probably need to go, depending on what they're doing, they're simply doing maintenance, that necessarily wouldn't trigger it, but I think it's gonna be more than maintenance. We need to at least alert them to.
Does pump replacement, is that a maintenance feature that doesn't require permitting, replacing of the gas pumps?
I understand they're not putting in gas pumps, are they?
There's 2 gas pumps there with coastal logos on them, and the gas pumps look new.
We'll have to check the whole
If you
thing.
would, please, I think we're putting, I think
I
we're
don't
a
know.
little premature over there.
It's been talking intelligently, but that just came up today in the discussion, so we'll have to get into it. We know they don't have any permits.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Because that's an opportunity to really trigger that corner into a really nice looking corner. And I'm hopeful that the buyers were aware when they purchased it, that it's going to trigger all those ordinance, all those regulations the gateway provides in that area.
Well, they're definitely in the gateway, which means they definitely are susceptible to the architecture review process.
Well, it's not difficult to get a permit, so.
That's all I have, man. Thanks.
Certainly. There is a Pearson and Lake Helen night at the Daytona Tortugas baseball game over in Daytona. It'd be the Daytona Tortugas versus Lakeland Flying Tigers. We get reduced admission if you're a Lake Helener. Take your ID and go enjoy a baseball game for $7. The city has faced several losses recently. I'm sure I was at a funeral this morning for Mary Roberts, and I was talking to one of the gentlemen from the Legion saying that he knew of 5 significant members of the community that had passed recently. So just take a moment to recognize them and remember that we are standing on the shoulders of generations of people that have worked hard to make this community work. Jim Johnson that made the table that's down there, staff is using, is very ill right now. I remember just a few weeks ago, we said, this table isn't quite big enough. He said, oh, I'll just build it up. Did he pass away today? I have not heard for sure. That was the kind of gentleman he was, though. He had just made this, and he was like, oh, I'll build it up. That type of community service and
again, captures the heart of Lake Helen, and it's what gives us our heart. So we want to remember all that have made what we are trying to be good stewards of. So from that to item 12A, Strawberry Festival.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. I'm just, Jimmy Johnson was such a friend of the city, as well as my friend. He would even, I had to fight him to get his invoices for the work he did for us. I'm very sorry to hear that he passed. Anyway, Strawberry Festival, we do have an application for a Strawberry Festival take place in March, the last weekend in March. And it is estimated to have somewhere between, by their estimate, 8,000 to 15,000 people. And it will be a very busy weekend, as you can imagine. It will be charging admission to it, but it's supposed to have all kinds of activities. And that's basically what I wanted to do, is to let you know formally and in public. We do have that application, and met all the criteria. We were discussing with them the fee for the use of the equestrian center, which is where they will be located. And we're gathering relevant data from other municipalities in the county on what are appropriate fees. There is no fee in our fee schedule for this type of activity, although it's forecast to have a fee, but it just says to be determined. So I'll be coming back to you the next couple of weeks with a concrete recommendation for a fee. With that, let me also, then, if it's okay, Mayor, go on to the next topic.
May I ask a question about the festival, please? I have a couple of comments for the benefit of the commission and the public. May I do? Of course. 8,000 to 15,000 people generates a fair price of $6, $48K to $90,000 for a 2-day event. It's going to put 8,000 to 15,000 people in here. It's going to have a significant effect on the facilities, the infrastructure of the city. I noticed here real briefly that the toters that they're going to be needing is 50 to 75, and I would like to know eventually where those are going to come from. With that. So then also I've noticed they want to put up 50, 18 by 24 4-class signs, which are the equivalent size to some of these campaign signs. I would like to be sure that they conform to the sign ordinance. I don't believe for this event that 18 by 24.
They would have to provide the sign ordinance. They're asking for nothing from the city in terms of contribution or in-kind services. They will provide everything. So
let's keep in mind that gross revenue is between 48 to 90 if they get there, 8,000 to 15,000 people. I'm excited about it, but it is huge.
It is.
Biggest event, I believe, in the city's history, but I may be wrong. Won't be first time or last.
Oh, we've gotten 5,000 plus for the 5K runs, I believe.
They're in and gone though. This
I know,
is in and out all.
But still have all that incoming influx of people in a very tight window. And it can work, is what I'm saying. You're right, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Let's make a note for the courtesy of the landowners around the property and all of that we, once we get a little bit further on with this, let's make a courtesy note to these landowners and say, this is what's happening. This is where we're going to be discussing it. Let's get them in here so they can participate in this discussion with the commission, since they're going to be bordering a very large event for 2 days. If this thing comes.
What is the protocol for events of this size?
I don't know that we've ever had one this size.
Might develop one. I mean, I can see where law enforcement needs to be involved with this. I can see where public works needs to be involved with this.
It's going to be all hands on deck.
Yes, exactly. And so to me, I need a whole heck of a lot more in the plan.
Yeah, I'd like to have representatives here. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, I'd like to see soup to nuts, what's going to happen. Give me a scope and schedule from soup to nuts, who's involved, who's the stakeholders, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
I think we certainly need to know everything that's going to be required of the city as far as.
Yeah, and we're one of the stakeholders.
Yeah.
You know, Butler comes.
I don't really want to get into micromanaging events For micromanaging. We need to have parameters,
Exactly.
and that's what you're saying. I just want to make sure.
A lot of times on these large events, because they can start to occur in the environment, involve the fire, EMS, and police departments. That the fire, EMS, and police have gone through, crowd control training, and someone gets certified in it, and they usually work together to figure out and answer all those questions you're asking about on how to properly control the crowd, how to redirect the traffic flow to make sure you don't have any jams and everything like that.
This is a well-known firm.
That's something the chief and the fire marshal have to get together on.
Butler is a well-known promotion firm here.
Ms. Brass?
Right, thank you. I think that bringing in, events like this is a wonderful idea. Just a little back on amount of people that we've had in the past. The 5K brought over, just over 800. So that wasn't a big influx. And the
Oh, I
parking.
thought it was more than that, okay. My mistake.
Which is the biggest we've ever had last year, was 800. I think it was 801. And the
I
parking.
just added 0.
Yeah, it's okay. And the parking was over at the equestrian center, but obviously there was no activity at the equestrian center. And the largest event that we've had in the past 10 years, I'd say, was a mix between our Fall Fest, 2018 Fall Fest, and that was about just under 6,000. And 4th of July, that one year, was around 4,500. And I say those two because those two events were held at the equestrian center, and we divided the equestrian center into, where you come in right here off that street, one side was parking, and one side was the event itself. So we've never had the amount of that, at least in the recent past 10 years. So parking is definitely something that would be something to be figured out.
Mr. Cook Jr. Stop behind your shoe for a second. How many people
Thank you.
with the button? Certainly. Thank you, Ms. Brass.
How many they go? There's not 700 people that
What,
are
700
cars.
700 a day
Yeah,
for how long?
well, we do obviously Friday, Saturday, Sunday there. But again, they're flowing.
I understand.
You're not showing up at a 5 o'clock time and stay till 10 o'clock. They come in early, then there's people coming in late, so they're kind of flowing in, they're flowing out. So it works good with parking. If I had everybody there at once, I'm sure we would have our hands full.
We've been a lot tighter. Okay, thank you. Just looking for some perspective on big events.
I think 700 average.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot.
What was the date again?
It was, I believe it's
Let's see, I believe it's
March 17th to 19th.
What is it?
March 17th to 19th.
Okay.
All right, because we're sending in our show dates for next year, and some are set, the first Saturday of every month is set, it's been done that for 25 years. The other ones, we have to work around other shows, so, but I will find out, because for some reason, I think that might be a show weekend, but I will find out and we can see what we have to do. Go ahead.
I don't know if I gave the impression that I was not in favor of this. I didn't need to if that's the way people took it. I think this could be wonderful for Lake County. What I am saying is that, case in point, right there, scope and schedule of other things that are going on, how are we going to, there's not enough here for me to look at this and say, oh yeah, that's well organized, all the players are involved, this is what's going on, this is how this is going to be handled, and that's not in this. Is it? If it is.
I agree with you, I agree on that, I'm just, I'm still at the South Club, so that's what I'm.
Yeah, appreciate your advocating.
Yeah, well, it's so hard for us sometimes in shows because we've got to work around shows that other people are holding, and sometimes we have to switch things around, but I will check on that anyway.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And I was just giving input as far as, the amount of people we've had for an extended amount of time that parked in, found parking and remained in the area.
Oh, I appreciate it very much.
And when we did have the fall festival, we were very, very packed. And same for the 4th of July.
more so on the fall festival, so there's more activities. So
I wonder how many people are in the community for the Fourth of July fireworks.
Well, you know, and good that we have not had a situation.
Yeah.
That's good. But just because we haven't, doesn't mean we won't. And for us not to be prepared, not to have proper protocol, not to put stakeholders together and do this right. I'd love to see this done. I'd just like to see it mapped out a little better and make sure all the players are.
If needed, I'd be more than happy to share some of the maps that we have used in the past for the events, as far as what parking and stuff is available.
Who's driving this? What precipitated this?
They came, the Buckler events came to us and solicited us, is that right?
They gave me a very brief.
I think it's a perfect fit for all y'all, to be honest.
You know what I want though, is I think the same thing, all of us here, this group on the dais, is that I need to get input from the police chief. I need to get input from the general liability of having that many people over the course of the 2 days, and the liability of the setup days, both Friday and Monday. Hear from the presenter itself, talk to the project manager or the event supervisor who will be on site, so we can put some accountability and responsibility into that individual before we proceed any further. Again, I want to reiterate the courteous and landowners, right?
I don't have a problem making a motion to accept this concept.
What action do you need from the commission this evening?
Really nothing. We're still negotiating with them on a fee for the use of the land. And I have been in contact with the chief and, not the fire chief yet. They said they would make contact with them. But really, I want you just to be aware of it and the citizens to be aware of it. It will be a big deal.
Thank you for bringing this to us so that we can start the discussion. And thank you, gentlemen.
Well, let me share one more thing. The Deland Fall Festival of the Arts is 30,000 people on a Friday, on a Saturday, Sunday, over 2 different days. And, you know, I was the operations guy for that. And this Frasco is exactly right. You know, there's a boat of planning that goes into that size. And we used to start 10 months out after the festival. And it just ended. We do a postmortem, figure out what we did wrong, do a stop, start, and continue kind of thing. And then move on to the next year. But it's a boatload of plans.
And I'd love to see the majority of that planning on the shoulders of the people that are going to do it. I'd love to see it an annual event.
That's what we did as the committee to put it on. We were charged with making sure people got in, people got out safely, and working with the fire department, working with the police department, and working with our insurance requirements. Every year, our insurance requirements change what we have to provide for the users.
I think the vice mayor has just volunteered to be a liaison.
I don't have a problem with that.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
One thing I tell you is I just went on their website and they have 6 or 7 strawberry festivals every single week.
Yeah, I saw
We
that.
started in February, going all the way through March, and they already have like listed on the calendar.
Yeah, I saw that.
Get the word out, boys. We can talk
Well,
about
they are very experienced and they know they can make it work here, and I appreciate that. I mean, we will have to approve it, of course, but I don't mind some
Palm
comments.
Coast, they do one in Palm Coast, the, weekend before ours, we're in Palm Coast.
Well, staff, you have heard our concerns, and I appreciate you bringing this to us so we can chew on it some. We need that.
What is the first one they're going to do?
February 18th, 19th is in Wickham Park in Melbourne.
Okay, Wickham Park.
That's their 5th annual there. Then the following week in Swanee County, the Live Oak Festival, 3rd annual. Clay County, 7th annual, March 4th and 5th. Palm Coast is the 6th annual Strawberry Festival at Central Park.
And what's their basic website? Buckler.com?
Buckler Shows.
Buckler Shows?
Okay. And then just say events, and I put it on the Valley's festivals, and I saw they actually have ours.
We're already on the,
Already,
the advertising has been
so it's
done.
the first thing that is first.
But, okay, item 12B. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question about that.
Certainly.
My name is Paulette Smith, 840 West Supplier Road, Wickham. will the city have them to, hire extra security? That would be one of the questions with it being at large, because I've done events in the land. And we did that fairground, and you had to hire off-duty officers to be security, because Lake Helen don't have enough law enforcement officers to handle something that big.
That's a
So
very good
y'all need
point.
to make sure y'all do that.
The application speaks to it, but it doesn't speak to the plan for that.
Right, they need to plan to hire
Right.
officers.
They speak to it, that they're gonna provide it, but we don't know what that looks like yet.
Right, because, we don't wanna agree on something and then have thousands of people here running wild, and then we have nobody to control.
Yes.
Yeah, it says they'll hire overnight security to secure the grounds, but it doesn't say about daytime security.
Right, you
So that
gotta
would
make
be a
sure
good
you
thing.
have to have security.
We talked about security just briefly, and again, they are going to have the police officers that are not at our expense, so I'm sure they're probably going to hire off duty from other agencies, we don't have that many off duty people.
Well, we might want to actually, and this would be between you and the chief to work this out, but you may want to bring that back in-house, because we may want to have more control of that ourselves. I don't know.
I just think their demands will exceed our supply. It's my-
Well, but the idea of hiring off-duty officers, from the land or wherever, again, we'll leave that up to our professionals here to give us some,
I just want y'all to keep that in mind.
That's a very good point.
It can become a problem.
not the kind of thing you want to come up with the last minute and say, oh, dang, we forgot it. So, thank you. Okay, item 12. B.
Item B and item C are both in the same vein. We do have Bobby Morales and a member of the staff here to talk about the city hall pay schedule and to briefly mention the ADA analysis report. We have 308 pages. So, but what we are really wanting to do is to show you some schemes of repainting city hall and get your reaction to it.
Bobby Morales, historic design consultant for the city of Cleveland County. Let me just say a few words before I introduce my colleague, Susan Mary. A couple months ago, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission, a couple months ago, Lee and Melanie called me into their office to a meeting. I was very relieved that it wasn't to terminate my contract, but to request my assistance and our office's assistance in helping select exterior finishes for this wonderful building. Now it's the city hall.
Still here.
Yeah, we still have the issue with the grants not right. All right, so we focused on the paint for the exterior. And I know that the city, and I'm just having 2 words prepared here, the city, appreciate how the city certainly cares so much for a building that has attained historic significance like this building. It's got a wonderful history. Susan and I got to learn a little bit more about the background of the building. We're very excited. She'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's important that we all recognize that the historic character of this property needs to be retained and preserved. And that this building should be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. I just want to go on record that's something that we need to consider as a city. This was a significant public building for the city of Lake County. Brought Susan in. Susan is a colleague, but was a competitor. She kept beating me at design competitions around the country, and so I thought it'd be just best to just bring her on projects. So Susan's credentials are amazing in architecture, interior design, and she is a highly sought ADA consultant, which we'll speak of in the next item. So if I may, I'd like to bring Susan up to the podium, and she can tell you a little bit about what we
what we found out about the building and some of the suggestions from the
Thank you, Mr. Rep.
Hi, Susan Berry. And I actually spent my high school years hanging out in Lake Helen, so it's definitely a personal project to me as well.
It's nice to hear.
Excited about it. So one of the things we talked about, and I talked to several people that are multiple generations, Lake Helen people. The building was originally built from brick that was made from clay that was from Lake Helen. It was pale yellow. And the gymnasium, that I was told was the gymnasium on Woodland at Stetson was the same brick. So using that or looking at that as a case study, they have just resealed all that brick. So they ended up, instead of stripping it, they sealed it, and they have 2 more coats of painting put on it within that sealing process. So because of the moisture, it's such a loose sand brick, and we've got this moisture problem here, we really need to be looking at sealing and the quality of the paint. So saying that, I'm going back to lighter colors for the body of the building, because that tends to work better with sealing and moisture and the other problems we're anticipating. Because it's historical, we want to kind of stay in that Florida Mediterranean look. It's like whoever painted it before, they kind of stayed with that pale yellow. Okay, okay. They kind of have the pale yellow, but then they just kind of grab that green, that crayon green, and cover everything else with it. So we're looking at the building historically. What would have been what, right? So the brackets, the ceilings under the awnings, the soffits, the fascias, all of that would have been wood. So in those 4 schemes, we're going with a deep, rich wood for the soffits and the fascias and all that. Base was really concrete block, but in theory it was supposed to be stone. Florida stone tends to be really white, more the white sand, the gray sand colors versus the clay color. It's more of a clay color I'm building now. So again, in the 3 schemes, we're looking at doing the base as if it's Florida stone. Often was cast concrete. So the base of the building, the window sills will go into more of a stone element, pale gray, pale whitish type of color. And then I know that right now you don't have the brand for the windows, but I'm using Marvin windows. Most people are in construction are familiar with that brand. Marvin does, they do great historical reproduction windows. So you've got that cladding on the outside, and then on the inside you have the option for stain or paint. So when selecting colors for the windows, I figured let's start with Marvin's colors, your standard colors, so there's no upgrade, and we can color match to that. That way, if we have to paint now, we're still planning ahead in case we can't afford, the full window restoration later. So that's kind of the basis of where I was going with those. And then the other idea is, on the front of the building where we have those little, so this building, they tried to do a little bit of detailing with the brick because that was what they were limited to. I mean, it was definitely an economical building at that time period. So we've got these little green diamonds. I'd like to pull in some nice hand-painted, like Mexican type of tiles and Mediterranean tiles. Just do a little bit of jewelry on the front. Iron, if something's iron, let's use a real iron color, right? So if it's the stars, if it's the stairs, again, there's 4 boards that you guys have up there somewhere we can't see.
Yeah, I'll hold these up, but it is difficult to.
Yeah, so basically.
And we will put these in the offices downstairs if anybody wants to take a closer look.
And on the side, it explains exactly which color goes where. So basically, you've got the browns where we're doing wood. We're having some fun colors, the terracottas and the greens for doors and some other features, tile, and then the little metal things are some options for windows. So the one on that corner, lighter building, black windows or blue windows, wood. One option is also just painting the entire building more of a whitish color. including the base, but a little bit more modern. So you guys will look at that, but that's the thought process behind it. On some stairs, instead of regular color, going with more of an oil rub bronze, which is all the door hardware colors throughout your building, or a matte black, not a shiny black, but the shiny black camera. So it's just getting back to historical. So that's kind of the idea with the paint.
Thank you, it's very nice.
And on the ADA, I know I said you guys, not yet? Okay.
Commissioner, just comment.
You know I'm gonna have a question. Is there any chance to get, I don't know what the program you use would provide, is there any chance to see your visions on the building?
Yes.
And take the building as is and plug these colors and these trim colors and secondary trim colors and all that into the building so we can see that? Is that a yes?
That's absolutely possible. At least we start, at least at this point, because usually here people will start immediately eliminating something.
Oh, no.
So.
That's not, you don't want me to design anything.
Yeah, at this point, I would bow out as well.
We'd be happy with that presentation.
That would be very helpful. I tend to be probably similar to you, Vice Mayor. I can look at something and say, hey, that's nice. But as far as really being able to contribute to it having become nice, it's better if I don't help.
That's great.
But we are, again, we get paid to make tough decisions. So eventually we'll have to do this. This is a great start for us, though. And I know it's the first step in the process. I appreciate you presenting it that way. Thank you. What do we need to do next? Mr. Morales, what would you like to hear from us?
Well, let's get you the information you requested. We'll put that together. It'll be in the form of an electronic file, our file, which can then be distributed to the commission. We can go from there. One thing I do want to address, and we may be talking about it, but there is a quote for the paint already. It's in the agenda. We have not been privy to that quote, but we are going to express concerns about the proper preparation of the building. Especially a historic building. And there's some wonderful resources that the U.S. government has, the GSA, on how to treat such public buildings as historic significance. Not that we want to spend a lot of money, but it's not a whitewashing, right? This has to be properly prepared because we're trying to preserve and maintain.
The wrong coat of paint can do a lot of damage.
That's correct.
So I appreciate your helping steer us in the right direction. I really do.
We'd be happy to maybe provide an outline performance spec for the painting process.
When I first got here as mayor, when I started walking around looking at things, I of course noticed the paint being a little shabby. So that's probably was in part, at least, started this process rolling, and it takes a while. But we're getting out of where we're seeing some quotes and seeing some ideas from real true professionals in design. Appreciate that. So we will take this information and your follow-up and look forward to that. Thank you. I don't know that I need to say much else, do I? I've already said too much. Mr. Administrator, an introductory thing. We won't be deciding anything tonight, but I didn't realize that. When I got my packet, I finished reading it at about 2 o'clock this morning. And then I came into City Hall this morning and they said, oh, we're just kind of introducing that. And I'm like, oh, boy. I could have gone to bed much earlier. But there's a lot of information there.
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, and members of the commission, to use Lee's earlier expression about enough information to choke the horse, I know that there's a lot of information there. It's a process. It's an internal process that kind of came out publicly here. I'm going to let Susan talk about it because she's really the expert, has a great passion for this, and she does this for many cities around not only the state but other parts of the country. So she knows that she needs to get a brief
overview of what she sees and what she thinks is necessary. So, Susan.
Okay, you'll be happy to know that I whittled that 300 pages down into
John.
Oh, wow.
two lists to read to you.
Well done.
Okay, we're going to start with that. So as you know, ADA, National Facilities Act, Central Barriers came on in 1991 with the Civil Rights Law. Florida realized nobody was doing what they were supposed to do, so Florida made the building code in 2012. Cities are supposed to have a transition plan in place with the state of Florida as far as, what you're doing to become more accessible. In general, place is pretty darn good. So when you did that 1990s renovation, they really caught a lot of things with the ramps, the stairs, the elevator, and all of that. And then a lot of the things that sometimes don't get on the architectural plans is where they goof. So I'm going to just quickly read this list, and the other thing was just to say, 27% of Americans now identify as having at least one disability. That 27%, only 6% are full-time wheelchair users. And because the ADA uses that wheelchair as a symbol, sometimes we tend to think we're not seeing the wheelchair users in our facility, that we're fine. But the majority of disabilities are hidden. So that's kind of where we're going. So I'm going to be really brief. I'm going to read this list quickly, just so that you guys can feel better about what you got, because that report was telling you what you got right, what you don't have quite so right, and exactly how to fix it. So, and the majority of the things can be fixed handyman-wise. So basically, exterior, we've got to fix the sidewalks, because they're kind of wonky. They put in that wonderful accessible ramp back here. Oh, sorry. They put in the ramp, and it lands in a pile of gravel. So we need to do things like that. The emergency staircase, basically just the outside needs to all be connected with one nice smooth sidewalk. Whatever.
I did have one question. I'm going to interrupt you. I apologize. I did have one question about that. The sidewalk, the full sidewalk around it, you've addressed that several times. Most of the exits, the fire exits that go and end up basically on a pad or just going down into the grass are just that, they're just fire exits. They're really not entrances and exits. Do they still have to be connected?
They're emergency egress. Emergency egress has to land on a solid ground surface and connect to your accessible.
And it has to connect?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Question answered. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes. Another thing to do with the sidewalks, we need to have detectable warnings, which are pretty much, the pad with the little bumps, and it's, people used to think this was blind person with a cane, but it's also cognitive. It just gives you a clue that we're about to walk into traffic. So it's a great, easy, ready-made, you just, Okay, so I'll go quicker. We don't have directional signs on the outside of the building. So we've got a beautiful front, people don't know that go around the back. Simple signs. Handrail extensions on the emergency stairs, the stairs up to the door. We just need to add extensions. And that's because people hold on to them for balance before you go up or down. Same in the interior stairs, they just need to continue the one handrail. Let's see, we need to redo that ADA parking space, no access aisle. We no longer use the word handicap ever, because handicap comes from taking off my hat to bag. So that's now a word we replace with the word accessible or person with disability. This door, the accessible door, you're kind of going in an alcove, so you can't, if you have to approach the door lever from one side or the other, you can't, so we're suggesting an auto door over there. That's pretty much it on the outside. Not that much. Inside, where they missed is when they put in all the brand new hardware, they did round door knobs. So if you've got arthritis, muscular difficulties, you can't grab them. So any door, that's a door that any person who's an employee or the member of the public can go through has to have some type of accessible hardware. And accessible hardware is push buttons that you can pop the door open, because you don't have fingers to twist that little lock like in the bathroom. Signs, you know, you can't necessarily see that exit signs, you have a braille raised text sign at each door. Signs, identify rooms, that's easy. Directional signs, telling people to get to the elevator, to get to the accessible restroom. And the rest of it is mostly furniture. You can't have furniture on stair landings, you can't have furniture blocking. So when I come up a ramp, I need people to turn around, which I can't do because people can't over here.
That's very easy to see, that pinch point right there and right there.
Yes. So a lot of things that you can use to do it, just shift the furniture around. That's easy. You can't have to use rugs. And in here, I don't know if you have an amplification system.
Yes, and we've ordered a new one, and I don't know that it addresses ADA requirements. So now is a good time for us to do this, to assess that.
Okay, so you've got enough information in there to get interest and then you can start looking at bids and what you need. And the very last thing is just in the restrooms, some of the toilet paper is blocking the grab bar. Some of the paper towel dispensers stick out far enough to walk into them. So it's just lots of little things in the restroom to fix the screwdriver. So, did that make the 300 pages feel better?
Much better. Thank you.
Not really, but.
Thank you.
No, we do appreciate it. It takes, I mean, there's a lot of
There's
detail.
a lot of detail.
And it takes
This is killer.
the fresh
It just takes
eyes
a while to
coming in, fresh, well-trained eyes coming in. I could walk around this place reading the same regs and not seeing half of what needed to be seen. And I think that's actually part of what happened with our initial renovation. We had many people that were very familiar with the building, and they came in and made their vision. And yes, they were professionals, but it's easy to miss little things when you're so used to looking at something, and it's supposed to look like that. But you just miss things. But we do want to be compliant, and, well, whether we want to be or not, we do need to become compliant. So thank you for
We gotta
helping.
get out of wonky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the commission. As you can tell, we're very passionate about these things, so thank you.
Well, thank you for being here and being so patient with us.
We went through the same thing down at the information hall. We had all our doorknobs where you had to grab them and twist them. Now they're all push down leather, easy to open and get out with because of those same issues.
Now you can't keep anybody, make them stay in the meetings.
Well, the door's locked behind them, such a while.
I just want to say too, I'm always available for questions. If it's at the American Legion or wherever, somebody has a small business, they have a question, I can answer in 10 minutes, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you very much for that. Item 12D.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we did earlier, the only thing remaining on the agenda is not on the agenda. It has to do with the assessment process and the garbage collection and stormwater costs.
And this is the moment we have all waited for, or at least I have, because I got an introduction to this. Just, if you would go ahead and give your introduction and then I'll give mine.
All right, let me do that. And I don't want to go into some of the detail before people get there, but traditionally municipalities collect assessments using the county system of the tax collector and the property appraiser. There are rules and regulations that are established, and they have to be in conformance with already approved costs of the city's resolutions. This particular year, there were I had competition. This particular year, there are two of the three assessment programs the city uses. The first one being fire. It is not an issue. The second one being garbage is very much an issue. And the third being solid or stormwater, which I'm recommending be an issue. So to basically what we need, we will have to do our own collection for stormwater and for refuse, and as well as have the county do their version of it, so that we'll put them both together and receive a whole number. That's the awkward part. The best part is that we'll actually save money in doing that, $7,500. But in the meantime, we need to know what numbers the commission wants us to put on an assessment. And let's go to the first one, which is not a staff recommendation, it's a contractual obligation. And we have with us Mr. Morris, representing Wasteco, our garbage collector. And he is going to tell you the problems of inflation and the cost of collecting garbage and what we need to generate in terms of revenue from assessments in order to provide that critical public service that every municipality provides in one way or another. So,
Well, thank you very much. My name is Ken DeForest. I'm the division manager for Waste Pro in Volusia County, and we're your garbage haul. I'd like to also introduce Susie Dolan here tonight. She's our Director of Community Relations and Government Affairs, and Steve Cameron. Steve is our Operations Manager and soon to be the Division Manager when I retire. So I'd like to give you an update on the contract and what's driving costs for us, which are evident in the prices that we gave you, and talk about those prices. So currently the contract expires September 30th. We're on an extension of the original contract, a 5-year extension. It started back in October 1 of 2007. The city had some informal discussions and wanted to bring to the attention of the city major cost increases we've seen in supply and service. We had conversation with the city administrator, and then I did get notified that the city was interested in going out to an RFP, and I understand what the changes in the pricing that makes sense. And then I also had another request for a 1-year extension to the contract, which also makes sense to me to give you time to put together an RFP package. We're happy to help with that process. And then also we provided some pricing for the 1-year renewal. And we also then revised the pricing a little bit to match Ponce, one of our other cities. And it was a slight savings of about $12,000 a year from what the new pricing that we proposed. Can we go to the next one? So what's driving our prices? The economy, all the changes we've seen since COVID hit and all the economic changes. I'm sure everybody's aware of it, but the big ones for us are vehicle expenses, fuel, gas, oil. Wages are gigantic for us right now. Supply chain issues that we're having in our insurances. There's a couple of other things unique to this contract that are causing this big gap between what you're paying now and what we're asking you to pay and what we think is the market, to tell you the truth. So for years, we've only gotten 75% of the CPI. So if the CPI was 4%, we got 3%. So year after year after year, it's caused a gap between where we ought to be and where we are. Going back, I went back to the 2007 contract. We got paid $19.94 per home. We are currently at $21.28, which is $1.34 over 15 years, or less than 0.5% per year. So that has caused a big gap in where we need to go to. The other thing that has changed over the last few years is this has always been a one truck operation to pick up the garbage twice a week, one truck for the yard waste once a week, one truck for the recycling. A couple of years ago, we had a growth spurt here, and it took us over to where we couldn't do it anymore in the garbage. So now we send 2 trucks on Tuesday and Friday to pick up the garbage. So going from 1 to really 1.5, it shares with another town. So it's 1.5 routes, 2 days a week instead of 1. That's also more cost, and we have some dead windshield time getting out here because of that extra cost. So we go to the next one. I think we've all seen the news. We know what's going on here. Just if you go back around September of last year, we negotiated some other contracts, and we thought, okay, we've gone from 3.5, 4 to 5, that's okay. And since that time, everything has gone sky high. After January, fuel has gone crazy, but you can see, the last CPI inflation was 9.1%. So we've gone from 5.4 to 9.1 in just 10 months. Can you go to the next one, please? And here are some of the impacts. So even at 9%, the impacts to our operations, transportation, garbage collection, maintaining fixing trucks, hiring people, has been much higher. So now this is for our entire division. We run 99 routes a day on average. We have 222 employees, and we cover 12 of the municipalities and then the rest of the county, where we call it open market, anybody can service it. So our monthly expenses are up since September, $541,000 a month for everything. It's not all yours, but that impacts you and the prorated piece. We've gone to every one of our cities and asked for some help. To be honest with you, we haven't had a lot of success because the contract says we can ask, it doesn't say that they have to do it. But regardless, it's affecting our operation, our ability to continue to operate. Vehicle maintenance up 43%, tires 19%. A big one for us, number one for us has been wages, number two has been fuel. Our fuel expenses are up 89% for the compressed natural gas and 85% for diesel. Gas, oil, fluids are up 51, our shop labor is up 39, operations labor 27, and the list goes on and on. All much higher than the 9%. When you go to the next one, just that I'm not making the numbers up, not that I would, but these are charts that come off from government charts. You can see we're April of last year at 299, now we're at 554. Diesel has come down a little bit just recently, which is good, but we're still much higher than we've been in the past. The next chart is compressed natural gas. You can see in August of last year, we were at 407. That's for a million BTU is the way they do it. In June, we were at 770. The July number is not out yet, so there's major increases there. And we have one of our, normally our garbage truck here is compressed natural gas, and then the recycling truck and the yard waste truck is usually diesel. So we have both. When you go to the next one, this is just some articles. I'm not going to go through them all, but I can tell you we've had tremendous pressure on our operations from other local companies, U.S. Foods, Amazon, UPS. They've been cherry picking my people for about a year. June 13th, a month and a half ago, we said, look, we've got to do something, otherwise we won't have anybody to pick up garbage. So we've raised our rates considerably. We'll get to that in a second, but I can tell you that the increases we did, which is the third time unscheduled in the last year, this last one was $48,000 a week in payroll, to try to get to a point where we stop the turnover and these other companies couldn't come in and grade us and throw money at the guys and then they're off doing something else. If we go to the last one here, this is our actual mid-2021 actual average rate and wages for those positions, and as of June 13th, actual average wages for these same positions. So we went from 16 to 23 for a driver, a helper from 14 to almost 18. Locally, we're close to Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's, they want people, they get people to work for $17, and the work's not hard. Our guys work very hard. It's difficult to attract them and get them, and we hope these wages do that. Without the drivers and without the trucks, we can't do much for it. The grapple truck or cherry picker drivers, you can see big increases there, roll-off driver. The technicians are our mechanics. So the technician A, that's the master mechanic. They're really hard to find, and we lost 4 people out of our shop to Orlando and UPS because they were offering $35 an hour, and they paid all the benefits. And it's just that constant turnover, and then there were 3, 4, 5 months trying to find a replacement, get it trained up, it's just difficult. So we made the commitment, we gotta figure out how to pay for it, and none of them Lake County paid for it, but that's, all these things are driving our prices higher. Is there one more there? Yeah, the market rates, so this is the most recent large bid, it's actually in Flagler County, where we were the incumbent for Palm Coast, about 40,000 homes, so there's a lot of opportunity to have lower prices at that large of an operation, but about 40,000 homes. We were the low bid at 32.33 with a net of 29, with a record 32.32. So right about what people are penny less. We can keep the work. In any event, you know, that's the market price. Also, market pricing is why I offered the little bit cheaper for Ponce Inlet. Ponce Inlet is a similar size city in house count. Services are the same, twice a week garbage, once a week recycling, once a week garbage waste. Cherry picker comes out and have a large pile. It's significantly smaller footprint. Houses are close together, so it's not identical to what we do here, but we love Lake Helen. We've been here a long time. The realities of what it costs to do this, we've been faced with all year. We're experiencing these costs that have driven our margins down to nothing at this point. But that's why I thought with a competing, we're not competing, but with a local city, at least it would let you know that this is not new and it's sharing some of the same thing. So, is there one more after that? I don't think there is. Nope. Okay, that was it. I apologize, I left off the last one that showed you the pricing, but what we settled on for pricing was $32.73 per home. That nets to us $29.46. That's the exact same price that Ponce Inlet is going to be paying come October when they get their new CPI. It's a big increase, it's about over $11 increase. We're willing to do that for a one-year contract. And we're asking, I've requested that during the first 6 months of that, or starting now, that we try to negotiate, we'd like to renew the contract. We understand it's a big increase. If you want to go out to RFP, we'll support you with that. And, but we'd like to negotiate for about 6 months. And if you need a little bit more time, maybe 4 months. And then if we don't reach an agreement, then you can go out to RFP. That's where we're at. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. Without getting too much or anything, we love you too. You've been here a long time.
Yes, we have.
And we've got a very clean and wonderful city, largely due to your effort. We appreciate that. Are you powerful? I quit talking for a minute while the computer reboots the recording. But we do appreciate it. We do understand that everybody up here and everybody in this country has felt this last year. And we're all sort of sitting on pins and needles wondering what the next shoe to drop is going to be. Am I being?
I think you might.
Okay, I'll just speak loud. I can do that. I'm not as good as our vice mayor, but I can speak. We do appreciate your work here, and we're a clean, beautiful city largely because of it. And we know that. You've been here faithfully negotiating with us the whole time I've been on the commission prior to this and now. So thank you for that. This increase, while it stings, isn't your fault. I don't believe that at all. What is kind of hurting us tonight and what we're going to have to do, commission, is we've missed our window for having this go into the county collection process through the ad valorem or whatever it is, not ad valorem, but through the county tax assessment process, which they usually do that and do all the collections for us. We've missed that window. We're going to have to do it ourselves, and I would imagine
that right at the same, there I am, that right at the same time, where we're starting to collect something right at the same time as a major increase, we're gonna get some significant blowback and pushback. So I just saying that as a matter of fair warning that we're gonna hear it. And it's not surprising, and it's not that all of us aren't compassionate and sensitive to the fact that this is very real and it's gonna hurt people. At the same time, most of the changes are per property owner and per person. Most of these changes are really quite small. It seems like a lot when we look at the aggregate number, but when you spread it over every property owner, it really is a very modest increase to any one property owner. Not to say they don't feel it, but it is modest. And it's something we can't control. We have to do it, and we have to, it's a straight pass-through. Our job is to negotiate the best rate we can. We believe we're doing that, and we appreciate your being such a good partner in that. And it's just a straight pass-through. We don't get a cut. Our job is to do just that and to represent the city in that process. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Mr. DeForest while he's here?
I'm sorry you had to go through this. I really am, because it's painful. It has to be painful on your side of the table, knowing you've done all the things that you had to do just to stay in business. And then you have to come in here and ask for more. It's not an easy thing to do. I was fully expecting it. I'm glad it's not double what we were paying. Okay? So I expected it. I don't see any choice. When we were talking about this at the last meeting, my immediate reaction was because of the blowback we knew we were going to get, is if we really need to send this out of an RFP, just for the plain fact that our constituents deserve to have a sense of clarity about what they're paying. If we choose to continue to work with you in the future, I would like to have all of the documentation that's out there in the real world that I can show to our constituents and say, hey, we negotiated this for more than 1 year, for multiple year deal, based on this information right here. This is what the rest of the world is doing around me. Okay? So I can put it out in an RFP, or I can continue to work with a friend that served us well for 20 years, and they're giving us the best price compared to what's out there. So if I'm armed with that information, it's real easy for me to sell that and to continue to negotiate. If I'm not armed with that information, I have no choice but to put that on. So I'm prepared to do this on a 1 year deal, and you guys can compile the information we need, and we can continue to work with you. That's the direction I'd like to go.
Mr. Administrator, do we need to approve that rate tonight? Yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
Well, just check it.
Quick answer.
No.
There's just one little extra thing that's not part of the rate, but you do need to approve the rate, and you do need to understand that 1/3 of that rate will be collected by the city through its own assessment process, 2/3 goes to the county's assessment process. So there will be two rates, two collections, and that's going to confuse some citizens.
Are we the only city in the county that's in this?
I'm sorry?
Are we the only city in the county that's in this quandary?
I don't know.
I will say that,
Often, the reason I ask that question is often when this happens, although we may have missed it, because of this unprecedented time that we're in, maybe the county makes it, or have they said to you, no way, we can't do this.
We have worked with the county tax collector and the property appraiser. Property appraiser really is the main entity that we work with. And we have a separate attorney that does, advises on the assessment process, which is regulated by state law. And this is the best solution that we've come up with on how we can do it correctly, that you have the decision-making process tonight, and still collect it using the assessment process. Albeit we'll have to actually do the assessment for 1/3 of it, I mean, the collection 1/3. But
That sounds like a extreme pain in the ass, and how does the consumer handle that?
There are two advantages for the consumer. The original method is collected by a tax bill. You pay your tax bill for your mortgage, however, that's gone. I mean, that's the Hunt's payment. The extra one will be invoiced by the city to the property owner, which is not, in some cases, the citizen, because the citizen is a tenant of the home. They don't get the bill, the property owner gets the bill. Assessments are levies onto the property for services the property receives as a citizen. So anyway, the invoices will go to them. They will have the option to pay it monthly in 1/12 allotments. They can do it quarterly, they can do it lump sum. And because we are collecting, we don't have to pay for that amount of money, the collection fee that the county would normally charge, which is 5%. So that's the $7,500 I mentioned earlier, we actually saved. So, it's not much, but it takes the sting out of the effort we'll have to put into it, and the citizen gets to save 5%.
I don't know what choice we have.
I don't think we do have, and if we need to approve that, I think we should go ahead and do that before we move on to the entire assessment process.
You do need to approve that, so we can move forward with that in our separate assessment process. And that will involve a resolution we'll have in 2 weeks, to like the one meeting.
Yeah, how we collect the money doesn't really matter.
We'll vote on it again officially, but this is to give us direction to start.
The official vote still has to happen, to set these rates. You are given direction to start the process.
Okay,
So it's gonna come back to you for official vote again.
which will come back with us, not this contract rate with
the
assessment.
The assessment rate is tied to the contract.
Right, that's how we collect the money from the citizens.
Yes, it'll be.
That's not our contract with.
Approximately 1/3 of the cost we're talking to Ken about, will have to go through the city process, so that's what you'll have to do in this next resolution.
And we will still bring back a contract.
Oh,
The one you're.
But we have to approve the rate, the contract that you're gonna bring back to us.
We need to make
I
a
see what you're
motion
saying.
that approves the new monthly rate of 32, 33, or whatever that is, right?
But I think what's important is the rate is going to dictate the documents that we have to bring back to you.
Correct.
To set the assessment. So now that's why you're even though you have future approvals to do, when Chris said you can't go above that, it's almost like we're relying on these representations to set all these documents. So that's going to be the assessment rate, your contract
But
rate.
before we get that full assessment rate, we're gonna have to add in garbage, fire, non-residential fire, vacant fire, and stormwater. We got, all of those have to be determined before we get that assessment rate, correct?
actually, the fire one has already been predetermined by previous resolutions of previous commissions.
Okay.
So that's not a problem for you. Now, it's this particular one, we need the rate approved so we can, as the city attorney said, we can bring back the proper documents for your approval through a resolution process. We also have to notify all the residents, all the properties in town of the increase, and so they can come to the resolution special meeting, express their opinion on that. So you'll have to go through that process. And then, when we're finished with garbage, we can go to the same thing we need to talk to you about with stormwater.
Stormwater is the big one, the other big one. This is a big one, and stormwater is the other big one. Which is even more, this one, for garbage, we are contracting rate, and then that's just a straight pass-through. For stormwater, we have a fund that we manage, and how much we collect there is much more pliable by the decision of this board as to how we manage that. So that's a much more difficult discussion in many ways. But for right now, for Mr. Forrest's sake, I'll entertain a motion to approve a contract rate of what? What? Oh, no, I wouldn't turn it over to them.
3273 is the negotiated rate.
Yes, it is.
3232 is what the Comcoast has.
So 3273.
3273, and out of that, we get 10% back. There's a 10% franchise fee.
So do I have a motion?
One thing I think should be made clear to all of us to be sure, are these unpaid assessments are essentially a receivable in Lake County.
Yep.
I want to go on the record to confirm that what I'm reading here, that the unpaid assessments down the road a year from now will be then put back on the lower and more, so that receivable is going to be paid. I anticipate some not paying this.
Yes, and that's a discussion for a different item.
Okay, all right, very well. And I've been in your position about 30 times here in the past 3 months, so I had a little bit of sick humor. Now that I'm listening to myself do the same thing you're doing for your customers that I'm doing for mine.
These are difficult times, stressing everybody a lot, and that's when our friends, as you mentioned earlier, our friends are most important, and people that we've developed these relationships over a long period of time, we really do want to respect and honor that.
I don't really like to hesitate to do things that are painful. Do it, get done with it, move on. Therefore, I'm going to motion on the table to enter into a 1-year agreement at a new rate of $32.73 per month.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Commissioner Vasso, a second from Vice Mayor Connell, to approve a 1-year contract rate of $32.73 for this coming year. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Did we explore the option, I know we had talked about, at the last meeting, moving to 1 day a collection of trash per week and how that would affect the proposal? Did we explore that as an option, or we decided not to do that?
I'll let him explain it. The last time it was explained to me, basically it said you have X number of tons of garbage, and you can pick it up once a week or twice a week, it still costs that much.
Still
to pick up.
twice the same, right? Okay, that was my understanding, I just want to make sure.
But typically, there's a small savings, but you're right. If you pick it up once a week, it's not half. Because the once a week, then I gotta send twice as many trucks because you have so much garbage in the tank. It's usually a small,
My
10% savings.
Yeah, my personal feeling is I will leave that option up to our constituents once we get the backlash from this. And then I would be prepared to have 2 proposals, one for a one-time pickup, and then as we go forward, not now, this is, we'll do this.
Yeah, you can handle that in the RFP.
Yes.
Options.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
That's a good question.
Thank you for re-clarifying that.
No, these are the questions that our constituents all ask us, so we need to be discussing it faithfully and regularly. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Thank you, Mr. Forrest, for being here, and you are approved, that rate is approved to move forward with the contract. Thank you, staff.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Was there any comment on this for public?
I didn't know. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Frasca, I did have one. I apologize. Ms. Frasca?
Thank you. From Pasco, 616 John Street. So I have a couple of questions, and hopefully you guys can clarify this. Why was this not on the agenda with public notice?
I'll leave that to the city administrator.
Thank you, I was prepared. This whole process has been very fluid, including up to 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. We found out we had a huge obstacle. We didn't get it worked out until about noon today. It would even be on the agenda, so it was just a timing issue. And certainly no intent of holding anything back. It just was an issue that had not really gelled sufficiently to even bring to the commission until, noon today.
We did discuss at the last meeting, the increase in the rate, and we decided at the last meeting, or one of the last meetings, to go to through an RFP process, but we ended up against the time constraint of that. That really has made that virtually impossible
So,
for this round.
with that, did you guys have this information before it was brought up tonight? Did you receive it
That
earlier
they were going to
today?
hear.
Was that information on the dais?
What information? Did we have what information before tonight?
For the assessment?
Did we have this information?
Okay, so you have it on.
I got it tonight.
Yeah, well, being at 12 o'clock, I mean, it wasn't updated onto the agenda either. It was
One of the things that when this first came up, when you found out, because last month we voted to send out an RFP.
okay.
When it came up that there wasn't enough time to send it out in an RFP to be able to get it into the budget process in timely fashion. We were stuck in a situation where we had to negotiate because we didn't have the time. And one of the things I asked Lee is, can we please get a calendar that has every single thing that we need to do in a timely fashion? And the problem with this is that even when you have a 5-year contract on it, it's not an annual calendar. It might be a 10-year calendar that we put all these things on, so you can see them coming up. So, to be perfectly honest with you, I think we all missed it. I know we missed it, I know I missed it. I didn't see it coming up, and we should have, to be perfectly honest, we should have known that the contract was going to expire. We should have known it was going to take a certain amount of time for an RFP. We know the county had restrictions on when we had to get the information into that. We missed it. Every single one of us missed it.
I'll also say that in the past, when we have come up against this time constraint that's caused by the tax process with the county, our increases with various contractors, but this one in particular, have been within that very small, we're not affected appreciably in any way. Now, we're only going to be able to collect about 2/3 of it through the tax thing, and about the rest of the other third is going to have to be done manually by us. It's a big change that threw us for a loop, but it's not a big change that Lake Helen caused. To a large extent, it was caused by the whole national economy. I don't want to go deeply into that, but that's what threw us more for a loop in a very different way this year than ever before. We've come up against this numerous times, but this was very different because of that. Vice Mayor Collins?
Yes, so thank you. Just for a moment to Ms. Frasca's point, and she makes a very good point on the information law and timing. We started getting information, I did, on the emails, everybody else was copied in, August 1st, late. Then we got into some more detail yesterday, several more emails yesterday in detail. And then some information yet today that was in the packet in more detail. So the information is not brand new to me tonight. What was brand new to me tonight was the presentation from Wexpro. But I was given assessment rates, I was given a history of assessment rates going back 10 years. I was given histories of the stormwater. All that history was happening. It was very fast and furious to this point, compounded by the fact that we were up against that RFP deadline. And, it's not where I want to be personally, but it is where it is.
Well, I mean, our choice at this juncture was to do something tonight or stop picking up trash.
I understand that, and I appreciate, the honesty and clarity with that. So, you asked, were we the only one in this situation? How is it that every other city has been able to pull it together with the economy the way it is?
We don't know.
Doing all this, but we're unable to meet these deadlines.
I'm going to have to assume that that's a rhetorical question, to make a point, not to dismiss the point.
It's not a rhetorical question.
Well, I can't answer for every other city as to how they did it, so in that sense, it's rhetorical. I'm not being argumentative. What I'm saying is that, you're right, we didn't pull it together in a timeframe, and that was my best answer that I mentioned a few minutes ago, is that this threw us, it was such a different increase, it just threw us out of what has always worked in the past.
Well, I have an answer to that. I have several answers to that. First of all, we don't know that every other city did not pull it together. We don't have that information.
Okay.
There could be other cities like us. Two, there are multiple layered contracts. Ours just happened to end this year. Other cities whose contracts didn't end this year, they didn't actually even have to do the increase because they were under contract. You follow me? Some they may not have had to deal with it.
And if 5-year contracts were the norm, that would be about 20% of the cities.
Right. And so, there's a couple of different reasons why that would have happened. Still does not excuse us from doing things in a timely manner. Okay? So
going forward, are we gonna have a safety net put in place to
I
where
would
we
like
can
to see a calendar
this?
that posts out in front of us, okay, these time-sensitive dates that certain procedures need to happen in a time manner.
Okay, and Ms. Kraska, I appreciate your weighing in.
Well, I do
Can you
have,
wrap it up really quickly? It's been, I mean, I know we've interrupted you a lot, but.
well, yeah, I have 3 questions, and
Okay.
I'm just into the third one here.
Thank
So will there be an additional bill that we are going to pay that is not included in our taxes? So
Yes.
where are we at and what's that gonna look like?
That's what we're gonna address next, and the answer basically is yes, because we will not be able to put the full amount of this contract, pass that through to the county tax bill. So it will come directly from the city as an additional bill. That's why we're gonna get a lot of additional,
It's gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $12 a month.
Pass
Or
it
about
on.
$200 a year.
for that. There's also stormwater that we're gonna address as well.
And that would be an additional bill because we did not make that timeframe?
Yes, because we did not make the time frame.
No, it was going to cost more no matter what. The only way we would not have been paying for it is if our contract did not end this year. If our contract ended in September 2023, okay, then we wouldn't be doing this at this point.
Well, what I was addressing though was stormwater.
Yes.
And I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we had that one stormwater contract that was estimated to be, by the engineer estimated to be a $44,000 contract. We got the bids back and they were $76,000 was the low bid, for a $44,000 estimate contract. That's the environment we're in now. That's the stormwater environment we've been in for quite some time. We have had, I got information or some numbers today from staff over the last 3 years. We've spent $1.5 million, rounding down a little bit, or up a little bit, however, but close to $1.5 million, and we've only budgeted $60,000 a year. What's happened is that the general fund has subsidized the stormwater utility fund. So it didn't come up and bite us. The money was there, we spent the money, everything's going along fine. But we're not doing I don't believe, we're doing our business properly. I think we need to be properly funding that fund through the budget. And I believe, and I haven't been able to talk to our finance people yet, but I believe that there should be some basically payback, although it's, one pocket to another, payback from that utility fund back to the general fund. We need to properly fund our stormwater. I know Commissioner Basso has been saying this for decades.
To your point, remember the last time we sat down in the budget and you wanted to do the rollback rate?
Yeah.
And I said to you at that time, we've got a bill due, it's coming.
You're talking about last year's budget, or you're talking about this year's?
So the last time we sat down,
Okay.
we did the budget. And I said, we've got a bill due coming,
Mhm.
okay? And if we don't continue to try to put money away, so when this bill comes due, we're at least prepared, okay? And that bill has come due now. And we're
So, I'm not.
what I'm saying to you is we have neglected our infrastructure funding for a long, long time. And we can't do it anymore. We see our water system, drinking water system, transmission system needs major funding. We don't really spend any money on stormwater unless there's emergency, and that's not a way to go. For the longest time, our city, the great majority of homes in our city, 85 to 90% of the homes in our city did not pay enough taxes to pay for the services that they're actually getting.
I understand where you're at.
So we have new homes coming in that are much higher value, that are paying for things, and the situation's getting better. This didn't help us. This fuel costs, labor costs, the rise in, what's the word I'm looking for?
Inflation.
Inflation, thank you very much. You know, it's hit us at the same time that we need to do all of this infrastructure stuff.
And I believe what that's done, if I can jump in here and
Yes.
say that I really do believe that this has exposed our
Achilles heel?
in the way we have done this for a long time. Like I said, the last 3 years, we were able to pull staff was able to pull those numbers up very well. We've underfunded, like I said, the ratio is like $1.5 million, versus 60,000 a year that we've actually put in the budget for. We haven't funded it properly. This is showing us our weakness, our weak point here. And it gives us an opportunity. I mean, we can fix it. It's going to be difficult though. The way we fix it is through a proper assessment. Staff checked with other cities throughout the county and came up with an average rate of $108 per property. How would you say that?
Yeah, per property, for stormwater.
$108 per property for stormwater, and we've been at 30. We've been at 30. So we are well under where we should be. And there's two ways we could do that. We could try, well, there's a bunch of ways. There's an infinite number of ways practically. We could come up halfway this year and halfway the following year. I think that would be a big mistake. We could.
So far behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, we've underfunded for I don't know how long. Just looking at this past 3 years, we've underfunded that, what I've mentioned already. We could just bring it all the way up to 108 and become average, and make ourselves equivalent to the rest of communities in the county, which is probably puts us right where we need to be and gets us on a level playing field.
That's assuming.
But it doesn't fix anything that we've left undone.
And that's making an assumption that fuel rates and.
Yep. Inflation are gonna stay flat. You're right.
Okay.
Thank you for answering those questions, and, the citizens here in Lake County, we look up to you guys to make those choices are dotted, and that's why we vote you guys in, to keep over, even with our administrative staff, to make sure those things are followed through. And I just ask one thing, and I have no more questions, is when the time comes to the bill is going to need to go out to the citizens, please give enough information out ahead of time, so that way the citizens, especially who are on fixed income, can properly account for it and save up for it.
You're right. That will be very important. The process here will be very important.
Thank you.
Thank you. One last, let me finish my thought there. If we come up to 108, we put ourselves back at a break even, and we haven't fixed any of what we didn't get properly assessed over the last however many years. I believe we've got to go above that. My personal belief is we go well above that. It sounds like a lot of money, and it isn't real money. It's not going to be an easy sell, but that's the reality that we live in. We've got to fix this. I believe, as Commissioner Basso said earlier, I forgot exactly how you said it, but when something got to be done, even if it's hard, you just go ahead and do it. We're not paid to make things easy. We're paid to give people proper representation and proper management. And
this has slipped through the cracks long enough. Commissioner, or Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You know, sitting up here sometimes the job is incredibly easy. The perspectives are wonderful. We get to do some really cool stuff, and then there's some times when the job is tough, real tough. And it affects people's lives, and that's the perspective of the position. It changes in ways you just can't imagine. And this is one of those times for me, commissioners and mayor, and Mr. Evatt, I've always believed in teams, and because I believe even in conflict, a strong team can survive conflict. And other teams that are get weak, that conflict evolves, and there's not too much discussion after that. My point is this, Mr. Evatt, I feel that you so far have done an incredible job here with the dynamic that you inherited, the water, the public works director, a legacy man leaving, and that's been tough to recover from. We still are. We're still recovering from wholesale change in staff. Chief Mullins is brand new to it. So, Mr. Evatt, you've done an incredible job in spite of all of that. And regrettably, this is something that we knew was coming, but we don't know up here. It's hard for us to keep track of all the various bids and contracts. It is your all's job. And I know I'm pretty sure you know where I'm headed to with this. I'm sorry it turned out the way it did, and I'm very appreciative that you told me that up front, that it just got past you. And I want that to be understood, and I respect that level of honesty, rather than try to say, well, we did a little this, did a little that, we just couldn't get to it, and all of a sudden it's here, and thank goodness for West Pro, they're gonna come in and help us out for another year. Now, had we been on top of the contract extension, or contract renewal, I'm sure our rates would be going up just as fast as they can. And so we're there now, and we're gonna get that. It's gonna go up, and we're gonna manage to it and all of that. But Mr. Evatt, I have to say that this is the first time I've actually had to come out and have a significant concern over something as significant as this. Because as Ms. Frasca, and I'm sure the residents are gonna be saying going forward, what the heck happened? And I understand that, and I'm sure you do too. So I would be prepared